Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Live.
Good morning. Welcome into Hurrdat Sports Live here on a Friday. As it appears, many of you know already based on the chat, but in case any of you have not heard, we lost our dear friend Matt Vrzal yesterday. And as you can imagine, it's been a really difficult last 24 hours or so. Not quite that long, I guess. And as you can imagine, that's why Damon's not here this morning. They were as close as two people can be. It feels almost cheap to just call them friends. They were, I'm sure, would have described each other as family. There's a lot of you expressing your condolences in the chat, which we very much appreciate. I found it really interesting as people started to find out last night that, and I think it really speaks to who Verz was as a person, that people who only knew him through our show or other shows or through Paisans feel the heartbreak that they do about his passing. I was lucky to know him a little bit better than that. Certainly not as well as DB. But the thing that I kept coming back to and actually it's the thing I've thought about a lot about Verz since the time I've known him, is he was always kinder to me and better to me than he had any reason to be. And that's pretty unusual in people. There was literally nothing I could offer him except for friendship and occasionally buying pizzas from him. And he was always, beneath his tough exterior, he was always incredibly kind and incredibly good to me. And I'm not unique or special. That's how he treated people. And I think that's why people are reacting the way they are this morning and last night as they find out. He was as good of a hearted person as I think I've been around. Lots of things that people didn't even know about that he would just do and not tell anyone about. Just a good guy. I know for a long time Paisans did days where they would just donate a portion of their proceeds to different charities, and that's just who he was. He was a incredibly unique person, and he'll obviously be very, very missed, not just by me, not just by DB, but by everybody who came into contact with him in even the smallest or largest ways. You could see the outpouring of love and sadness from his teammates last night on various internet platforms as they found out the news. Obviously, my immediate thoughts and heart and concerns go out to Verz's family, and that includes DB. DB's been through way too many of these recently, and my heart breaks for him, and it breaks for everybody that knew and loved Verz. He was a teddy bear is a really good way to describe him. Somebody said that yesterday to me. He looked really tough, and he was really tough, but just a kind, good-hearted man. And there were several things that I admired about him, and one of them was that he was authentically and unapologetically himself. That's something I really, really value in people, and he was that to an absolute T. He was also one of the hardest working people I've ever met in my life, which is something I admire because sometimes I wish I had more of that. Um, he seemed to have boundless energy for work and still had energy to help the people that were around him whenever he could as well. Um, he will be dearly, dearly missed by anyone who came in contact with him. So, if you haven't heard yet, I am sorry to be the one to break that news to you. But uh, just Matt Vrzal did pass away yesterday at the age of 51. Um, I don't really know what this show is going to be like, if I'm being honest with you. We're going to try and do somewhat of a normal show. If people want to talk about Verz, they absolutely can. If but other than that, we're going to try and do a normal show. I don't really know what else to do. I didn't go to broadcast school anyway, but I don't think they teach this, even if I did. Um, so we're going to take a break here in a minute and basically start the show over and do, like Headley said, I think do the thing that Verz would want us to do, and that's to talk football today. So that is we're going to come back here in a minute and basically just start the show over. But tell the people that you love them. Um, there's no telling that what tomorrow brings, and you'll regret it if you don't. So we'll take a couple minutes here to kind of regroup and restart the show, and we'll be back with more Hurrdat Sports Live.
You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Live.
Welcome in to Hurrdat Sports Live, presented by Centris Federal Credit Union. That is Austin Jacobson. I'm Ravi Lulla here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. Really appreciate all the thoughts and comments in the stream on various social media platforms as well. As I said, we're going to do our best to do as normal of a show as possible here today, and talk a little bit of football. I think Verghese would be mad at us if we didn't talk a little bit of football today. It's a great college football weekend. Just as I don't think I said this earlier, but I did mention that's why DB's gone today. DB's going to take as much time as he needs. I don't know what that looks like, but he'll come back when he's ready, and we'll obviously allow him that space. Whatever he needs from us is what we will provide. So with that, we will get into what is a very good and exciting college football weekend. I'm kind of torn between last week and this week, right? There's a bunch of great games coming up on the schedule this week. But there's also some things I'm still sort of digesting from the first few weeks of the season.
Yeah.
Right.
Quarter of the way in.
Yeah. A third of the way in for some. I mean,
Ooh,
Nebraska's played 4 games. A lot of teams have played 4 games that haven't had their bye yet. But there's a few, I don't know if we would call them hot takes or not. Okay. I'll leave that to you to decide.
Oh, please.
On whether we're going to do a little buy or sell. Okay. Are you buying the take or selling it?
Notably great at the stock market, me. So.
Yes, this is what I've heard this about everyone that goes to UNK. They're financial gurus and geniuses.
It's more of an education school, but yeah.
Well, okay. I thought.
The business college is booming, though.
See, it's a great business college.
Business college.
I know many things about UNK.
You name your favorite 3 facts about UNK?
It's in Kearney.
Okay, that's a good start.
Part of the University of Nebraska system.
Great, too.
And I love their football coach, Ryan Held.
Okay.
Boom.
Good to know.
3.
Bang.
Got him.
I like that. Yeah.
Got 3.
Okay, that's very good. That's good fast facts, too.
It's the first paragraph of the Wikipedia page.
It is indeed, yeah.
So there's some things that I'm trying to decipher through. I don't know, filter through.
Filter is probably the best one.
Yep. You know how DB likes to say he's got the colander out, he's shaking all the things. I don't cook, so
yeah.
I assume that's the one
with all the White in that thing.
All the holes in it.
Oh
right?
Yes, yeah.
Different type of cooking.
Oh, my bad.
One of the things I'm trying to figure out here is LSU.
Yeah, I agree.
Obviously, they've got a big matchup with Ole Miss this weekend. They also have what very well could be an incredibly fraudulent record up to this point.
Yeah, their record at this point could be like the trash bag, the Glad bags that have like the scent around them, but everything inside of it is just garbage.
Yes.
Yeah. That could be LSU.
Yeah, because the garbage inside are wins over Florida and Clemson, which looked great at the time.
Especially week 1.
And now we sit here and we go, I think Florida and Clemson are very bad.
Yeah.
To the point where both of their coaches are likely going to be fired.
And is Clemson Florida Stating from last year?
It's very possible. It's entirely possible. They made the playoff last year, and then although they didn't have to replace a quarterback or anything, that I think is the weirdest part, right? You had Cade Klubnik coming back. I don't know what to do with LSU because I don't think those are good wins. Mm-hmm. I'm also very much what was the team when you played them, though, right? So was Clemson actually good when they played them? I don't think Florida was ever good. So I have less trouble with that one. I do know sometimes things kind of snowball on you a little bit. You may have been good in week 1, and by week 4 or 5, it's kind of falling apart on you. So here's the hot take. LSU has been wildly overrated because of those 2 wins. Are you buying or selling that?
I buy that, partly because coming into the preseason, what did we expect LSU to be? More of an offensive team. Mm-hmm. Brian Kelly kind of believes that the defense is what's been holding them together, really. And it does help when one quarterback throws you 5 interceptions, and then Clemson also gives you multiple opportunities at different turnovers as well. Not a top 50 offense for LSU. Mm-hmm. And if you're going to have a top 32 pick in next year's NFL draft at quarterback, you'd expect to be able to be one of those premier offenses, at least in your league, if not the nation. And they're not being led that way. I have thought that they have been a bit fraudulent after that Florida win even. Mm-hmm. But as we continue on the season, I guess we're going to see whether or not they're just competitive enough to be beating all the rest of the teams that they face, or if they are going to be, caught in a trap and they're going to get exposed here soon. Because I actually feel like it's rather the latter, that I think that they are a good team. I don't know that they're the third best team in the country like the ratings would have you think that they are.
So here's what their schedule's been like so far. It's not like they've beaten the life out of these teams that turn out to might be bad anyway, right? So Clemson, that's a 17-10 win. That was a grinder the entire way. Louisiana Tech was a 23-7 win. Famous football power, Louisiana Tech.
Yes.
Shout out Troy Edwards. Florida, just a 20-10 win over a team that I think is quite bad.
Yep.
And then they beat the life out of Southeast Louisiana 56-10. I don't give them a ton of credit for.
Here's a couple of teams that LSU has less touchdowns than so far this season. Notable football power, Jacksonville State. They have 15 offensive touchdowns. LSU only has 13. How about SMU? They've been kind of back and forth this season. Pretty good offense, though.
Jennings has really struggled, though.
You can look and say, Louisville and also Toledo both had 16 touchdowns this season. They probably should have maybe better offenses. Or LSU should have the better offense than those two.
Especially, you sold it short on Nussmeier. That wasn't just a first-round guy. They were talking about potential number 1 overall pick.
Yeah, trust me, being a Panthers fan, I was definitely had my eyes on Garrett Nussmeier.
And there was this weird thing that may have happened because his dad is the OC for, I believe, the Saints. And so there was like, they might have the first pick with dad on the clock to see if he wants to pick his kid, and how much of an indictment on his kid is if they don't pick him. So, yeah, the Nussmeier thing has been problematic. I also am buying that LSU at number 3 in the country is very overrated.
Right, yeah.
They might be a top 10 team in the country. We have not seen them perform at a level that would justify their current ranking.
Although I would give the credit and credence, obviously, to I think the defense has outperformed any of the expectations they had in the preseason.
100%.
Well. And again, I want to put a big asterisk and caveat on this that DJ Lagway did throw up like 2 complete ducks that got shot out of the air and then fell into the lap of LSU defenders. But nonetheless, 5 interceptions in a game is 5 interceptions.
Yeah, you're being really kind with just calling it 2.
Well, the one where he was trying to throw it out of bounds and he just kind of threw the ball into nowhere. It was good.
I'm not convinced that he was trying to throw it out of bounds. There was a receiver over there.
Right.
I think he was trying to throw it to him. I really do. I don't know. I'm pretty sure his arm's strong enough to get out of bounds if he wants to.
Well, that's what we were told, right? That's what we were told.
I was told.
Yeah.
I was told incredible arm.
Yeah.
I was told that.
But on that opposite side, too, I know obviously you start the year with Clemson. That was kind of the biggest game of that season. At that to the point, right?
Sure.
It was
Absolutely.
Now we're looking at Oregon and Penn State probably being like this next pivotal point. But you look back at that game and the trajectory of the teams, I don't think has changed much for LSU, other than I do feel that the win is becoming like stinkier as the season goes on.
It's rotting at the end of the dock for sure.
But how quickly Clemson just completely rotted upon itself and is now just like, it's desecrated all over the ground, right? Like there's nothing that they can do to even save the program. It feels like Dabo's having these public conversations about how the fan base is calling him out, how there are calls even for his job. There's openings and opportunities that he may even be interested in here coming up here sooner rather than later too. It's crazy to think that just 4 weeks ago, we went from Clemson being a national title contender to potentially changing over the entire face of the program by the end of the season.
Yeah, you've really seen, and DB's talked about this, you've really seen the degradation of the program week by week through the post-game press conferences of Dabo, where he goes like, hey, we're going to be fine. It's one game, whatever, to, hey, we've won a lot here. We're going to win, to, hey, do you know who I am? Do you know how much I've won?
Yeah.
Like, it's gotten weird in a hurry.
Well, and 2 weeks ago, he was in that press conference where he said, I just turned 55. I'm starting to get good at this coaching thing. And his team was 1-2.
And he goes, hey, like, I'm not going anywhere. I'll find a job. And it's like, okay, bud. Well, you might have to.
Yeah. Also, weird thing to say, too. Do you know where I think he could go? I think I've said this to you before.
Where?
I think he's going to Florida.
See, I don't.
Okay.
Because Florida, you might be right. I think Florida wants to be a bigger player in the NIL game than they are.
Right.
And that's not really what Dabo wants to do.
Well, Billy Napier is the one who got their NIL game going.
Yes.
But there's also the part of it, too, that if you get a guy like Dabo Swinney, regardless of what his record is at the end of this season, that will get the people who spend money more excited for you. So if you just tell Dabo, hey, we'll handle all that stuff, do the old 1980s SMU method. You coach the football, we'll handle the money, right?
Yeah.
I think he could buy into that.
Maybe. Yeah, it's certainly possible. I do wonder if he's not actively involved in fundraising the way Billy Napier is, if the excitement carries over long term to cash, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I really don't. So that I think Florida may try and find someone that's, although if that's what they have now, maybe they zag and they go to someone who's not doing that exactly.
Yeah, Josh, Dabo to UCLA. I'll promise you this right now, and I'll say this public on air, that if Dabo goes to UCLA, I myself will run from Omaha to Sydney and back. I mean, that's crazy. There's just no way that UCLA, one, has the money to be able to afford what Dabo would probably want, and two, I don't think Dabo's going to move anywhere outside of that coast. I mean, I don't think he's going to be leaving anywhere outside of, I don't think he'll take an ACC job. In fact, Dabo's going to be the first person to fail upwards in college football, where he's just going to work his way from Clemson and having a bad season to potentially getting another high-profile job the next year.
Not the first person, but he's definitely
recent memory.
Well, I have a Willie Taggart memory that's pretty fresh at Florida State.
Very good point. Good point. Yeah, that's fair.
Anyway.
He definitely did fail upwards.
Yes, multiple times. And then so there's I do think it's super interesting. I'd be stunned if Dabo went to UCLA. I'd be stunned if anyone with real power conference head coaching experience went to UCLA.
Yeah. I like this. Josh also adds Florida best move could be Sig.
That I would not be surprised by.
Yeah.
At all.
Watching, so after Saturday wrapped up, I went back to Lincoln and kind of just hung around some tailgates, went out to Lincoln, just like hung out in the bars and different stuff, and talking with either, family, friends, whatever, just random passerbyers. It was very interesting watching that Illinois-Indiana game and some of the halftime highlights or whatever was going on at that time, because you could turn out of that pretty quickly. That so many people just said the same thing, and who I was talking to, they're like, I just want him to leave Indiana so we can get back to Indiana being Indiana.
100%.
Because there's something about the Big Ten where, like, you can look at Northwestern now and be like, okay, they'll always be a trap game, but we should win that game.
Yes.
And you just want that back. Like, there's something about security in your conference.
I need the certainty that Northwestern and Indiana will suck every year.
Yeah.
Like, I need that in my life.
Yeah.
There's not a lot
and you always want, like, Rutgers could be frisky this year. Like, you could always say that,
Yes.
It's like the SEC has to be so mad that Vanderbilt is competitive again, because they're like, how dare they? This was supposed to be our one guaranteed win.
That's my freebie.
Yes.
What's happening right now?
Free space in the conference.
Yes, exactly. You get pass go, get $200.
Yeah, right.
Kobe says, does Bama fire DeBoer if Dabo becomes available? I don't think they'd fire DeBoer for Dabo at this point. I do think DeBoer has to make the playoff in order not to get fired.
Yeah.
I don't think Dabo's the top of that list.
Is the line? Well, it's won a lot of money, but I don't think that matters in the highest level of college football, that is Alabama.
Yeah.
But is there a distinct difference? And I know you said college football playoff, but is there a distinct difference if he ends 9-3 or 8-4?
I mean,
I think if he goes 8-4, I think that is the line where he's for sure gone.
If he goes 8-4, he's fired, because he's not in the playoff, and that's a 4-loss season, which hasn't happened since I think Saban's first year in the regular season.
Yeah.
So if he goes 8-4, he's definitely getting fired. If he goes 9-3 and makes the playoff, I think he's fine. If he doesn't make the playoff at 9-3, I think he has to make the playoff to not get fired.
Yeah.
Ford Clark says, Omaha to Sydney. If you run from Gretna to Sydney, it wouldn't be far, since they're both in western Nebraska.
I'm going to Gretna tonight, so I could just stop on by.
Very good point.
Yeah.
Very good point there, Ford. Josh says, honestly, I think UCLA should go as hard as possible, get Pat Fitzgerald. Knows the conference is used to being under-resourced and should be cheap.
Yeah,
that's actually a really good example.
Have you been waiting for Pat Fitzgerald to just resurface?
Not really.
I have been. Because I think he's highly regarded in certain, like, the coaching circles and stuff.
I would agree.
I don't know what athletic or university administration would want to carry that weight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a lot of extra baggage that comes to that administrators, I don't think, want to handle when it comes to him, because he ended up winning his lawsuit. Like, he ended up kind of turning over that leaf and actually turning into kind of the good guy in that whole scenario.
Yeah, I would call it good guy, but he was he appeared to be exonerated to some extent.
Right. Yes.
And so
court of public opinion is always a little different, though.
For sure. And I do think it's been long enough. A lot of people have forgotten about what it was Pat Fitzgerald was accused of. And I do think UCLA I think they both fit the profile. Both UCLA and Pat Fitzgerald are desperate enough for each other. Like, Pat Fitzgerald going to have a hard time finding another head coaching job.
That is true.
He's not going to be able to pick from, like, if Bama comes open, they're not calling Pat Fitzgerald. Right.
Well,
Clemson's not calling him. Florida's not calling him.
And anyone UCLA calls, there's a lot of people that will turn off the phone if they see like, oh, UCLA football. They're going to turn the phone over.
Yeah, they're
and not
like
look
Westwood. They're like pass.
Yeah, right. Because Chip Kelly's not coming back, right? And you're not going to get someone of the pedigree of that. You could, again, if you want to talk about a failing upwards type coach, is there someone in the NFL that is an offensive coordinator or former coach that like would take that job just because, hey, I got to get back in the game? But if you're looking for someone that needs to get back and needs that sort of upwards trend back in their coaching trajectory, Pat Fitzgerald's probably not the wrong person to look at.
Jack brings up an interesting point. Fitz to Wisconsin.
I've actually heard that one before, but also I think there's a part of Fitz that's maybe waiting to see if anything at Iowa opens.
I don't
think Iowa would let that happen. But yeah,
I don't think Iowa would go there. I think Iowa can do better than Fitzgerald.
So in a crazy scenario, because was it yesterday that you guys were talking a little bit about Kirk and maybe having some, or was that with Brett?
Yeah, it was within the last couple of days.
Yeah. So if that scenario ever played out, right, like, and it came down to that, let's just say Wisconsin and Iowa are both available at the same time by the end of the season for whatever reason, right? Which one is valued more?
Ooh, that's an interesting question. I don't know. I think Wisconsin is struggling with their NIL situation.
I think Iowa is a better job.
I think it might be.
I think so.
Like, I think it might be. I do think there's probably more. I think there could probably be more outside money filtered into the program if you had a more charismatic head coach that was wanting to go out and do that stuff.
Yeah.
My nightmare scenario is if either at Wisconsin or Iowa, that's where Kalen DeBoer ends up after he gets fired. That is my nightmare scenario.
I'd agree.
Because I love Kalen DeBoer. I think he's a very good coach. I think both of those programs would be incredible fits for him.
And also Midwest guy. So.
I mean, like he cut his teeth in Sioux Falls. Like that's his guy through and through. That's kind of who he is through and through. So that's my nightmare scenario, is that Kalen DeBoer ends up somewhere in the Big Ten where Nebraska has to play him a lot.
Yeah.
I think Iowa and Bielema are the match that is.
I don't think he's going to go back. I think he's really the way he talks about Illinois, the way that he enjoys that type of like atmosphere. Now, what would be very funny is if Bielema went back to Wisconsin. That would be somewhat hilarious because
I don't think he'd do that.
But if there's somehow, some way, they're like, hey, why don't you just mend all bridges? We'll just come right on back. Bielema to Iowa doesn't make sense. Obviously, he was a Hawkeye, was a part of that original staff, and then
Hayden Fry guy.
Yeah, and then moved on and moved around. But it would be very interesting to see what the pitch would be like. I just don't think he's leaving Illinois.
He coaches the exact style of football that Iowa wants to be.
Yeah. And he's non-apologetic about it either.
Yeah, he's like, this is what we do. We're going to bash your head in. Like that's who he wants to be. He wants to be a hyper-physical football team. Honestly, Nebraska fans would love him if we were in a different situation, right? Like he was
on my list of guys I wanted.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like before he went to Illinois, I think this was when Riley got hired. I was thinking about Bielema a lot, where I'm like, it might be pretty good. It might be pretty good.
I take that.
I think stylistically he fits Iowa, he fits Wisconsin. Obviously Nebraska's not open, and don't think it will be for a very long time. That is.
You want to play stock market?
Ooh, sure.
You want to buy or sell that there would be 4 head coaching jobs open in the Big Ten by the end of the season?
Okay, so we're talking. Wisconsin's tricky because I don't think they have a ton of money, and I think
they might just end up sitting on the pot and being like, we're just going to have to eat this until it gets to a number we can realistically.
Yeah, that number that they can eat.
Right.
Yeah. I have to look up Fickell's buyout again. I can't remember. I looked it up the other day with DB. I can't remember what it was. Looks like 25. 25
I knew 18 was in my head, but I think it's 18 at like the start of next season.
Yes, after if they fire him, but I think before January 1, it ends up being 25. If it's after, I think it drops to 18.
Yeah,
because it's 80% of whatever's left on his salary.
Yeah,
so like each fiscal year, it starts to drop down. So I don't know if that's for them is January or July, but because
you already have one.
Yeah, I mean, Ferentz isn't getting fired. It's whether or not he retires.
Right. Yeah. Right? So that would be, open jobs remaining.
Yes.
There's another school we haven't talked about yet a little bit that I think could also have the opening too.
Who's that?
Northwestern.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Braun's in trouble.
Yes.
And I don't think his buyout or his contract is
Big
crazy.
Ten Coach of the Year. People forget.
Yeah, I still can't. I mean, what he did the first year when he took over in those circumstances was unbelievable. I do think Cignetti leaves.
Okay.
I do think Cignetti leaves.
So you've got 3 there
for greener pastures, and his buyout is manageable. It's like 13 or 15 because DB gave me a hard time for saying only when I said 13 or 15 million.
But that's the other part too, is that other schools and administrations are willing to pay other schools to get the coach that they want, because that's usually part of the contract negotiation is like, hey, I'm leaving here. Can you cover this for me? And they're like, yeah, we'll pay that for you because we need you here. So.
Yeah, the destination definitely matters a lot if you're taking someone away versus just straight up firing them.
Right.
So I think Cignetti's gone. I think Braun's gone at Northwestern. That gives us 3 total.
So you're just looking for one more, but is one more coming? Because like you said, Wisconsin could have the financial trouble. Iowa may or may not. I mean, right now we're sitting at Iowa and we're projecting something that they're probably going to end up 8-4 and be perfectly fine by the end of the year.
And
right?
And again, that would be. Does he choose to retire? That's not a firing situation. Right. I am going to say I think Wisconsin opens up. I know the buyout's big, but every time we've been like, oh, the buyout's too big, they get fired anyway.
Yep.
They figure it out.
Yep.
They fire him anyway. A lot of times they'll structure the money so it's not coming out all at once. I mean, we did this with. What was his name at South Carolina? Will he was at Florida.
Oh, Muschamp?
Yeah.
Yep.
They were like, oh, it's like $40 million. Can't fire Muschamp. And they're like, get out. Leave immediately. They were like, wow, Jimbo's like $90 million at A&M. They're like, here's a check. Bye.
Yep.
And it's A&M. I mean,
oil money was a little differently back then. So
100%.
They hit a boom and they were like, all right, we can afford to fire our coach.
I don't.
Jonathan Smith at Michigan State. I
don't think he's in danger.
Yeah, I actually think we'll get in that conversation more next week, obviously, but that's going to be, I think people have a perception of Michigan State so far this season that I think that they are actually playing a little bit better than what expectation actually has them at, but I just don't think they've gotten the national kind of scope to be able to showcase what maybe they actually are, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think that I think when you hire Jonathan Smith, you understand he's a good coach. You're going to give him a few years. It took a few years at Oregon State. Michigan State was a mess when he inherited it after all the Mel Tucker stuff.
Right.
That's a good hire. Like, I think you need to wait it out a couple years with Jonathan Smith. Scott says Pat Fitzgerald is rumored to be a name in the running for the UCLA job. That's the one that makes the most sense to me. I know stylistically he makes sense at Iowa. I think Iowa can do better. Personally, and it pains me to say that, but I think Iowa can do better than Pat Fitzgerald.
I would be very interested to see what that coaching search looked like for Iowa.
Can we also,
when that time comes, because it's either going to be a coach in waiting opportunity, which it probably had been prior to them having to move on from their offensive coordinator, coach's son, right? At Iowa. But then,
which almost never works, by the way. Coach's son almost never works.
But it'll be very interesting to see where the struggle of power is, because then you'll get to see actually the black and white difference in Iowa of who's making the calls and who's calling the shots, because you will know by that hire who is.
And, do they have kind of the old school Iowa fans versus do they have some newer money coming into the program? Like, it's going to be really interesting. I think Pat Fitzgerald and UCLA make perfect sense because I think they are both very desperate.
Yep.
Here's the thing we forget about Pat Fitzgerald also. Before he got fired, he won 4 games total his last 2 years.
Yes.
He was 4-20.
We remember the good times of Pat Fitzgerald.
Yeah, which was 2 years, but which was a year before that. During COVID, they had a great year. But his last 2 years, they were 3-9 and then 1-11.
Yep.
That was pre-scandal breaking. That was pre-firing because that happened late in the summer.
Yep.
That I think does factor in here. He may have gotten over the issues in terms of what he was accused of and everything like that, and won the lawsuit and been exonerated. He still was on a really bad stretch for a couple years at Northwestern.
Yep.
So like if you get past the firing and legal stuff, you still have to deal with the football stuff, which was he was 4-20 in his last 2 years. And to a lot of fan bases, that's going to be a tough sell.
Yep.
To an Iowa fan base, I think that's a tough sell. To a UCLA fan base, it's a coup, right? Like that is a incredible hire if you're UCLA, because that is, I think, by far the best actual football coach for your situation that they can get. He's used to not having anything.
Yep.
Right. I think that's a really good fit for him. Somebody asked about, does Matt Campbell I know we're going out of Big Ten here. Does Matt Campbell finally take a higher profile job if offered?
Does he get any call from Iowa City?
He can't, right?
No, he can't.
But
does he?
There's no way.
Does someone not named the AD call him from a non-Iowa City number,
like
from Davenport.
A booster uses a burner. Is like,
yeah.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, this is Bill from Cedar Rapids. We'd really like to just gauging your interest on black and yellow.
There's no way.
There's no way. I actually, like, non-joking aside, I actually think that he would rather stay in Ames and continue doing what he's doing than go to Iowa. I think his evaluation of one, you gotta remember too that, like, just because we call it football and college football doesn't mean it's not like a different job, right?
Yeah, there's different tiers.
Yeah, and so I think there are probably certain parameters for him that he's like, okay, if I'm leaving Ames, Iowa, I'm probably not moving to Iowa City, Iowa, right? Because the money is probably a little bit different. It's a Big Ten school, get a little bit more rev share. That way, you probably get some more opportunities in that sense. But realistically, how big of a jump would it be from Iowa City to Iowa compared to maybe other jobs that Matt Campbell's probably turned down at this point?
So I don't think it's nearly as big of a jump as, like, he was rumored like several years ago. He was rumored at one point for the Texas job.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. That if he was going from Iowa State to Texas,
that's a big jump.
That's a huge leap, and that's probably one he would consider because money, location, resource, revenue, everything.
But apparently did not consider.
No, and so then why would that consideration then, unless he just like loves the state of Iowa, he just likes straight roads and interstates, I guess, but whatever. So,
I think if Matt Campbell leaves Ames, it's for the NFL.
Yeah. NFL money is different.
Not just that, but like I think for some reason, I think his like skill set it fits for the NFL well. He's a good developer of young talent. He's got a good eye for evaluations.
Yep.
Obviously they do more with less. I don't know what I think there's weirdly less of a transition to go be an NFL head coach for Matt Campbell than it would be to go to some place that is like a super high powered NIL dollars place.
Yes, right. Yeah.
Like, because in the NFL, all that gets taken care of for you. So unless he went to a place that already had like the general manager, scouting director, all that infrastructure in college, which is a lot of people are going that direction. So that's not out of the question, to be clear. But unless he found a place like that wanted to hire him, I do think the NFL is a more direct translation of his skill set, which is just coaching football and evaluating talent and those things I mentioned before, than going and running like a giant program NIL operation. Like, he's a good recruiter. I don't know if he, like, guys that are really good at finding under the radar prospects and things like that. This is one of the things that, you know, people have brought up against Matt Vrzal before. They're not all, that doesn't always translate to 4 and 5 stars.
Yeah.
Right. Like, that skill set doesn't, that way of communication doesn't always translate to 4 and 5 stars. It looks like it's starting to for Nebraska. They're like the 2026 class. There's some really high level guys, a lot of 5-star. I mean, I think next weekend, the number 1 player in the 27 or 28 class is going to be Kennedy Brown. I think his name is going to be on campus. We can talk to Tim about that here in a little bit, but there's a lot of guys that, I mean, I kind of saw it with Dana Altman to a certain extent,
right?
Like, he had to find the level of guy that he could recruit at Oregon that made sense for how he communicated and how he coached.
Yeah.
I think we see that more often than maybe we think about. So that's a consideration with Campbell that I like him a lot. So I think he would figure it out. I don't know how much interest he has in that.
Yeah, I agree. And especially, I mean, we're living in a completely hypothetical right now.
100%,
I may have just pitched out because, again, realistically, would Matt Campbell move from Iowa State to Wisconsin again? I don't think so. I think you would value Iowa State maybe over Wisconsin right now, just based on just the general fan base, everything else that's kind of moving around.
And honestly, probably easier to win the Big 12 than to finish in the top 4 in the Big 10.
Yeah. Well, and again, like, just putting this into real world perspectives, right? If you are at Iowa State and your goal, like if you're Matt Campbell and your next goal is to say, okay, if I'm leaving this job and I want to get a premier job in college football, you don't do what Luke Fickell did and go from Cincinnati to Wisconsin, because you've seen how that works, right?
Yeah.
If you don't win at Wisconsin, you don't get another job before you have to rebuild yourself and, you know, reclaim what you've done.
Fickell probably has to go back and either go to a much smaller job, or be a defensive coordinator somewhere big, and like, he'll probably get another head coaching job. I actually do think Luke Fickell's a really good coach.
Yeah,
I think ended up being a terrible fit at Wisconsin.
I think he'll probably, you know, I actually think he'll probably end up at one of the group of 5 schools that, if the coach is South Florida and or Tulane or something like that, ends up leaving, I think he could probably just go right there and fit in pretty well.
That would make sense. He's got some experience at that level already. But yeah, that's a guy he's going to kind of have to. Whereas like Kalen DeBoer, he's going to get another job tomorrow.
Yes.
Like, if Alabama moves on, some power conference school will hire him immediately.
Yes.
Like his phone will be ringing off the hook. So like there is a big difference there. And I do think Matt Campbell seems like he's been pretty strategic about his coaching career, and maybe he just loves Ames. I don't know. Like that's entirely possible too. Josh says the Kennedy Brown was on campus last week for Michigan.
Okay, gotcha.
So, but he was the number one player in the country, was on campus for Nebraska.
Have a good way of doing that. Used to not see those type of guys rolling around.
Yeah, and listen,
that's not nothing.
They've got to land some of them, but like they're in conversations they weren't in a few years ago.
Sometimes you just got to get them in the building.
And it seems like everybody that comes in the building absolutely loves it.
They got a sauna. How could you not?
Cornflicted. I do love a good sauna.
I do love sauna.
Cornflicted says Jeff Monken to Iowa. Listen, I love Jeff Monken. I am a huge fan of the way he coaches.
Is that stock going down?
I do think. I mean, it's Army, man. Like it's hard.
Yeah.
You know, he's had a couple down years. He'd come back up. I do think it's more cyclical with Army than it is with some of the other places because of kind of their restrictions in the current landscape of college football. I also do think he'd coach a little different stylistically if he was somewhere that wasn't Army. Like there's places, like Army's one of those places where it's like, yeah, you have to do something weird for it to work because you can't just play the same game everybody else does. It's like the line in Moneyball, like, if we play the same game the Yankees play, they're going to win. Yep. So you got to do something else. That's how Army is. And to a certain extent, that might be how Iowa is a little bit. That might be. So that's why that one might be a good fit. Honestly, UCLA should hire Jeff Monken. That's the one where it's like, hey, we can't play this game right now. We're broke.
Yeah.
But I know you can win without having a lot.
Yeah.
So now I don't know what that looks like in the Big Ten versus.
Hard to recruit that to UCLA though.
For sure, but in NIL, UCLA can't recruit anybody anyway.
You know what? Maybe Monken just goes in and he just says, I had to deal with the Army thing. We usually don't get a lot of people that transfer out of the Army.
Yeah,
it's a little bit different that way. But hey, listen, if you're a 3-star running back and you feel like you're a 5-star, you live in California, why don't you just come play for your in-state school, UCLA? And we'll get you as much reps and everything as possible.
Absolutely.
We're going to get you as many touches as running back as it goes. And listen, I will have no ill will if you get an NIL call from someone else and you decide to transfer out and do whatever, because I will just keep replacing you with other people who felt like they were being overlooked and they're 2-3-star talent from our own state. You wouldn't have to go too far to recruit. No. I mean, you could stay within kind of a 100-mile radius of your entire school.
I mean, certainly 500 miles. That gets you Arizona. They get you some Utah, Nevada. Like they get you Northern California. Like you wouldn't have to. Like you could probably recruit by car, not plane.
Yeah, this is the second time you're convincing me of an argument, like in the middle of it, because I started off and I was like, no way, but now I'm like, oh wow, now I'm thinking about it. But it does make sense though, because as long as the coach agrees in this new era of college football that you can be kind of a funnel system for other programs, even in the Big Ten, UCLA has to get up there, right? Like we talked about Nebraska having to pass the middle tier. UCLA is now below the middle tier.
Yeah, they have to pass the bottom
tier. They have got to get out of the cellar and work their way back to the middle. And one way to do that is saying, hey, listen, we're going to take talented guys that other schools overlook that we feel are talented. And if those guys show out and they have a chance to move on and move upward, we're going to let them. And we kind of have to because, one, we can't afford it.
Yeah.
And because we kind of have to keep doing that until the guys want to stay and commit to the program.
Because, like, here's the dirty little secret. Like,
but do you want Nico running the triple?
I think Nico, I'm not sure he's going to be in UCLA regardless of what happens.
He should have to stay for 1 year as punishment. That should be the transfer rule. You have to go to a triple option offense
for 1 year.
For 1 year,
you got to run triple option.
You got to run Millard North 1 year.
Hey, glory days.
Big game tonight. Big game.
No, they won last night.
Was it last night?
Yeah.
Oh, good. That's good.
56-0 over Bryan.
Woo!
Got that first W.
Weight off your shoulders.
Listen, had to get the W last night. This no, I do think any resource depleted athletic department should be looking at Jeff Monken and Pat Fitzgerald.
Yep.
Like those are the two guys. If you're like, I don't know if we can play in the big boy money right now. Mm-hmm. Those are the two guys you should be looking at because they can get you wins. Because like the dirty little secret at places that aren't named Nebraska is generally the money doesn't come until the wins come.
Yep.
Nebraska is very special in that regard. The other places you have to start winning in order to get the money.
Yep.
Right. Like unless you get like a weird like shooting star type of guy like Dion, where he just brings the money himself because he's Dion.
Yes.
The wins generally need to come first. It's really hard in today's climate to win without the resources.
Yeah.
right? So
like
you have
North Carolina.
So you have to find a guy. You have to find a guy that can win without the resources, so you can get the resources. That's a pretty small list, right?
Mm-hmm.
Josh asked an interesting question, and then we'll take a quick break here.
We love a break in the first hour.
And we have a call if you want to go to Jack here. I know the screen isn't up there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so Josh says,
can we get to Jack after the break? Can you hold on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Josh says, what's the chances that North Carolina opens? Got to currently be about 50%.
Well, that buyout was bigger, but then every single month, like, didn't it deplete significantly because they kind of had an idea, like, hey, if the NFL calls, Bill's heading out?
Yeah, it was Bill's out, like it was his out in case he wants to get back to the NFL, because I think he's always wanted to get back to the NFL. I don't think anyone's hiring him. Not just in the NFL. I mean, anywhere.
Yeah. I think North Carolina may just be stuck with him. Because
it's buyout small enough.
It's one of two things, because this is where it gets interesting with timing wise, is that when you don't fire your coach quickly, or you don't make a decision quick enough, deciding on whether or not he is kind of the future, or how long you want to prolong kind of a slow death, you lose the opportunity to interview and hire other potential candidates to your program that may or may not be interested, right? Either you want to convince them that North Carolina is the right spot, or that you can't convince them and you need to move on to the next target. That's going to be the tough part with Bill Belichick, because if you move on from this one-year experiment and you flush out everything and you move on, you do have an opportunity to then move quickly and say, okay, who can we go target? Who can we go after?
Okay, so here's the interesting thing about Belichick's buyout.
Yeah.
So the decrease from $10 million buyout to $1 million is only on Belichick's side. If UNC moves on without cause, so they'd have to fire him for cause, which you could probably find something if you really wanted to. But if they fire him without cause, they owe him the remainder of his contract with the first 3 years fully guaranteed. So at least the next 2 full years of money. So we signed a 5-year, $50 million deal. So at least $20 million.
Hey, Mike, can you help us out? Is there anything?
MJ, can we get some of that shoe money? No,
we're gonna need it,
please.
Just drop a new pair.
Yeah,
just drop a new pair.
Listen, you drop more 11s, you'll have that 20 million like that. All right, Jack, hold on the line, bud. We're going to take a quick break here. We'll get to Jack. Then we've got Tim Verghese coming up at 8 o'clock. That's Austin. I'm Ravi. It's Hurrdat Sports Live.
Back to busy feels better in the 2025 Jeep Grand Cherokee Laredo L. Right now, get 0% financing for 60 months. More space, more style, and more savings at Edwards CDJR Council Bluffs. Or get the muscle you need for busy days in the 2025 Ram 1500. Built strong. Now with 0% financing for 72 months during the Drive into Fall sales event. The Back to Busy Drive into Fall sales event. Only at Edwards CDJR Council Bluffs. To Edwards CDJR and Council Bluffs.
We asked fans to say something nice about each other. Let's see what everybody has to say.
I would say the one thing I like about Michigan is Taylor Lewan.
This place has been great. Everybody's really nice to us.
Nebraska has the nicest people. Go Big Red.
Well, I'm glad they beat Alabama a couple of years ago.
Just a volleyball school, and that's all there is to it.
Say something nice about Michigan? No, there's nothing really nice about Michigan.
Not even the lakes?
Never been there, so never plan on going, never will. If I had to say it, though, I would say Michigan. What is good about Michigan?
The reason that we came is because all of the Michigan fans who have ever been to Lincoln say this is the best place for away fans. And that's actually why we came. Everybody's really nice. They say, have a good game even though we're the opponent. So the Huskers have a great reputation in Ann Arbor, which is where we're from.
Today's Fan on the Street was brought to you by Warhorse Sportsbook and Casino.
Aspirations can drive us. Sometimes a simple gesture is what fuels the pursuit of a dream. When it's time to make your dream a reality, we are here to help. Centris Federal Credit Union. We are where you are.
You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Live.
Welcome back, Hurrdat Sports Live. That's Austin. I'm Ravi here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill, reminding you, if you're on the roads this morning, make sure you get that seatbelt fastened and make it click. It prevents injuries and saves lives, but only if worn properly. This message from the NDOT Highway Safety Office. Let's get to Jack real quick. He's got a question about the SEC. Jack, how are we doing this morning?
Pretty good, fellas. How you guys doing? Al, I know you're not doing too well today, but I'm sorry to hear about Vrzal. It's, when old farts like me die, it's kind of be expected. But when somebody 51 dies, it's a shock. So, but we're sorry to hear it.
Thank you, Jack.
All right, got to tell you guys, now hold on to your chair. Driving down the road yesterday, living in Tennessee, I do listen to some SEC guys every once in a while talking about this, that, and the other. And they had a guy on yesterday on a radio show. I think it was Dorian Oka was hosting it or somebody. Mm-hmm. And he said the SEC, we're talking about expansion, the SEC covets two teams. And I went, okay, tell me who they are. He said Florida State and Nebraska. I went, what? And
I had not heard that one.
No. I thought, well, so you the guy said, and I'll be honest with you, I was halfway listening to it, the introduction. I don't know if he's an SEC official or just some media guy flopping his jaw. I don't know. But I got to thinking about it after he hung up, and I thought, now the money's the same, especially with it going to 9, so you're not losing any money. And then you play real rivals, Texas, Oklahoma, Missouri, and Iowa. Unless you live off the Missouri River, that Iowa, that's been a manufactured rivalry from the start. And to Iowa people, Minnesota and Wisconsin are their main rivals. So I'm thinking about it. The honey hole for recruiting, Texas, which we lost, going to the Big Ten. Every year when we were in the Big 12, we get 6 or 7 or 8 guys out of Texas and Oklahoma that could damn sure play. So I got to thinking about that. I thought, wouldn't be bad. I honestly didn't. I don't think it's going to happen, but I was shocked that the guy said that's the two teams they covet the most. Talk to you later. Bye.
Thanks, Jack. Yeah, that's an interesting proposition. The only thing Southwest about Nebraska is the Southwest Conference. That would be, like Gothenburg, Minden, those guys. So, but yeah, I guess Southeast, I could ride with. I guess money would be good.
Yeah, I mean the money's going to be about the same, honestly. Yeah. It is interesting when he brought up the more natural rivals because
you get Missouri back.
I had forgot. Like, I know Missouri's in the SEC. I know Oklahoma and Texas are in the SEC, but you kind of forget, like, those are the teams Nebraska really kind of hated, like, back in the day.
Was it the Liberty Bell they played for? Missouri? What was that for?
I think that's Kansas, Missouri.
Was that Kansas, Missouri?
I might be wrong there. But because I don't think Nebraska had any trophy games before the Big Ten. The trophy games are a very Big Ten thing.
The victory bell with an M and N engraved on both sides.
There you go.
Geez, if you played enough NCAA 14, you'd know.
I should have known. The 14 was a little bit after my sweet spot for NCAA.
Sorry.
I was more of like an 8 through 12 guy.
Ugh.
No, that is a really interesting. I've not heard that. The ones I always hear are Florida State. That was not a surprise. Clemson, and then everybody wants Notre Dame, right?
Yeah.
So I thought he was going to say Notre Dame or Clemson there. Nebraska would be super interesting. I mean, as somebody who firmly believes that the SEC,
that you'd hate this.
Well, yes. First of all, yes.
How quickly would you turncoat?
As fast as possible.
Ravi Feinbaum?
You would see a Ravi-sized, a Ravi-sized Kool-Aid man right through the door out of my Big Ten argument. No, what's interesting is I don't think it would be harder for Nebraska in the SEC than it is in the Big Ten. Like I genuinely believe that. So from a competition standpoint, I don't know that it would matter a ton. I don't think playing Alabama, Georgia is any harder than playing Oregon, Ohio State, right? So I do think that would be a super interesting move and honestly a huge power play from the SEC.
Yeah.
Because that would be the first major conference versus major conference poaching.
Yeah.
Right? Everything else has been from the Big Ten, or the Big 12, the Pac-12, the ACC. Like all of that's been from the lesser power conferences.
In a Cold War, it's setting up bombs in Turkey. That's what it would be.
100%. Like, it's bringing missiles to Cuba. Like that's what it is, right? You're escalating things to a huge extent there. So that would be super interesting. I don't know if I think that's going to happen, but color me interested, Jack.
That would
Scarlet
and cream.
It would. Big SEC honk right here, as you can imagine. Do we have TV yet, Shano?
Not yet, but I've been in contact, so it should be shortly.
Okay.
Been in contact.
Let's go ahead and take another quick break here. We'll set up for TV and get him going. That is hour one of the show today. Appreciate all the kind words and condolences over the course of the hour.
Good job.
I appreciate that. And we will come back here, talk to Tim Verghese, talk about some of that recruiting stuff we were talking about earlier. It was a huge recruiting weekend for Michigan. Despite the loss, seemed like it went really well. That's Austin. I'm Ravi. We'll be back. More Hurrdat Sports Live.
Who is Nebraska volleyball's biggest rival?
Penn State.
Penn State? Why Penn State?
Oh, just because we don't like them.
I would have to say Nebraska's biggest rival is Penn State, because back in the day when they had the great players and Coach Russ Rose, and Penn State has always been Nebraska's Achilles heel, and as far as like opponents.
Probably Penn State or Wisconsin.
Yeah. Why do you think Penn State?
Because they beat us last year in the Final Four.
Yeah, you got to get them back this year.
Yep.
Why?
Right now,
Wisconsin, Penn State.
I'd say Penn State. Yeah.
Penn State or Wisconsin?
You know, in the past few years, I would have said Wisconsin, but after last season, I think we kind of own Wisconsin now. So now I would say Penn State, and we fell short against them last year, and that game coming up at home later this year, that is going to be absolutely electric, and I really hope that they can get the blackout to work.
Back to busy means Chevy savings this September at Edwards GMC. Lease the 2025 Chevrolet Silverado LT Crew Cab 4x4 starting at just $579 a month with $0 down. Power, style, and big savings at Edwards. Or step into the 2026 Chevrolet Equinox LT all-wheel drive, lease starting at $359 a month with just $1,000 due at second. It pays to make the drive to Edwards Chevrolet Buick GMC Cadillac.
Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Live.
Welcome back, Hurrdat Sports Live, presented by Centros Federal Credit Union. That's Austin. I'm Ravi here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. We are joined now by Tim Verghese from Inside Nebraska. Tim, how are we doing this morning?
Hey guys, hope it was under better circumstances. Thoughts with you guys. Shane behind the camera, the rest of you guys over at Hurrdat. Wish I got to know Matt a little more than I did, but always enjoyed our interactions. Just by every account, just a tremendous human being.
Yeah, I can full-heartedly endorse that, Tim. So I appreciate those words. Let's just jump right in. Let's start with Michigan last week. It feels like there's been a very large gap in the way people have perceived this game from even within the fan base, right? Of people that are encouraged by things they saw, people that think the sky is falling about losing another close game. How did you process what happened against Michigan?
Yeah, the discourse has been a little exhausting this week, but it's. I think my general thoughts, the further we get from it, and having a few watches under me, and just again having a understanding of the national, like just how things are stacking up nationally within the conference as well. I mean, again, I had Nebraska losing that game in my preseason prediction. I had them winning 9 games and still losing that game. Like, I still think all of that is still very much on the table. Winning 9 games, potentially 10. They have to take care of business, of course, over this next month, in my opinion. But I look at this game, and the further I get from it, it was Nebraska. That there's Jimmys and Joes, and sometimes those decide the game. That's ultimately, the further we get from that game, ultimately what feels like it. The Nebraska had this the scheme. They were counting on guys to make plays in critical situations. I think a lot of that second half, individual plays where it's a guy not fitting the run correctly, or a missed tackle, or hey, Dane Key catches the ball but it's not at the sticks, it's short of the sticks and he can't get back there. Like just little plays that would have decided this one way or the other. Michigan's guys, specifically the Bryce Underwoods and the Justice Haynes and the Jayshon Barhams and the future NFL players on the roster, made more plays on Saturday.
Tim, when you look at that contest, obviously you mentioned kind of the exhausting discourse that comes from it. It feels like, from what I've seen and perceived, it has felt a lot more that people are kind of agreeing that their concerns from the preseason and the first 3 games came to fruition against Michigan. Was there anything that you saw that maybe wasn't a concern before that did come out in that game that you're like taking note of and maybe paying attention to for future contests?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's just, it's not anything major. I did think Nebraska's pass D did a pretty good job. I did think there were a few times in coverage Andrew Marsh was caught out of position, and Nebraska was kind of lucky to get off with, hey, the pass was not accurate, or Bryce couldn't get there fast enough, or whatever it was. But there were just a few times I thought Donovan McCulley in particular got the best of Marshall. There was a missed tackle in there from him too, which was just uncharacteristic based on what we've seen from Marshall through the first 3 weeks. So just something I'm tracking moving forward. Again, Nebraska has Michigan State, Nick Marshall, big receiver, on the schedule coming up. I think Maryland's receivers are talented enough to challenge Nebraska's DBs one-on-one. And then you've got USC obviously down the line, and Penn State down the line with talented receiver groups. So something I'm keeping an eye on. I still think I have a lot of faith in this secondary, but just something I'm tracking.
So, Tim, as you talked about Underwood and his ability or lack of ability to take advantage of some of those lapses in coverage, or when guys were getting beat. If you were Nebraska, because this is the thing I keep coming back to, right, is I think one of the places that physically that Nebraska probably did have an advantage was in their pass defense and in their secondary, even though Andrew Marshall got the better of a couple times. If you were Nebraska, would you have just committed a ton of resources to the line of scrimmage and to the run game and just say, hey, Bryce Underwood, if you can make the throws we haven't seen you make all year on a consistent basis, congrats, you win? Oh, did he freeze?
Uh-oh.
I think he might have froze.
Either that or he's very still.
I would say
maybe it was too good of a question.
Stunned him with the question.
See if we can get Tim back here.
Yeah, we'll see if we can get Tim back, because that's the thing I keep coming back to. Right? Is
well, it's what we talked about for Hill Varsity postgame. Like immediately after the fact, like you were saying it as that final drive was like ongoing.
I said it before the game.
Yeah.
I mean, that was one of my keys to the game, was make Michigan beat you through the air. Underwood especially over 10 yards has struggled this year. We
Yep.
saw it in that game. He missed passes where guys were open. And they were open. Like Andrew Marshall, there was a couple where he got beat, and that one in the end zone in particular just didn't make the throw he needed to make.
Yep.
Or like Tim was saying, didn't get through his progressions to get to the guy in time when he was open. I think that's like if I'm Nebraska and I'm watching the tape this week, that's the thing that I probably want back is, hey, we can really sit on these the first 10 yards. Otherwise, like we are crowding the box, we're bringing run blitzes, we are making life miserable if you're trying to run the football. And if you beat us over the top, congratulations, you won the game. Because the alternative, and I'm sure Nebraska wasn't thinking this way, right? It's easy for me to say this from the outside. I'm sure Nebraska thought that they had guys that could make the plays they were asking them to make.
Yeah.
And when it's only 3 plays over the course of an entire game, and they were kind of spread out, right? Bryce Underwood was in the first quarter, Haynes was in the second quarter, and Marshall was in the third quarter, right? So it's like 1 a quarter for the first 3 quarters. It wasn't like early you got 3 huge gash plays and you're like, oh God, this isn't working.
Yeah.
It was, they got one there, and it was because they got the linebackers out of formation with motion, and then you had a gap up the middle with Underwood. And then the next one is like, we had Buford in the hole. Maybe Shavers could have fitted a little bit better, but Buford's a little late to the hole, doesn't get the tackle, doesn't get downhill fast enough that it's a pretty easy move for Haynes to make to break to the hash. Like, okay, that's fixable, right? And then the third one, it just seemed like they got blocked up really, really well. Tim, I don't know if you heard the question, but I'll repeat it. If you were Nebraska and you saw kind of what was on the table in terms of what Bryce Underwood was or wasn't capable of in the passing game, would you have just said, hey, we're going to devote a ton of resources to stopping the run because we know that's what Michigan wants to do, and if you're able to beat us over the top with Bryce Underwood as a true freshman in a hostile environment, congratulations, you win. Is that a game plan you would have felt more comfortable with?
Not necessarily. I mean, again, I thought the game plan from Butler was sound. Again, he was trusting his guys to make plays. The plays didn't happen enough, but they were not. It wasn't like they were out of position. It wasn't like, I didn't think. Again, I think the discourse about Butler specifically coming out of this game is a little over the top as well. Just because I thought he did a good job of getting Nebraska into the right answers. Okay, are there individual plays I think Butler would probably like to have a different call? Certainly, but at the same time, I don't think selling out for the run against specifically Michigan's play actions and what they would want to do there, I think that's where Nebraska would have gotten off track a little bit or potentially gotten caught. So I was fine with the game plan defensively.
So on the offensive side of things, obviously there was a issue with defending against the outside pass rush, kind of the edge pass rush of Michigan. Did you like when Nebraska went to some pretty RPO heavy stuff in the fourth quarter? What did you think of their offensive game plan overall? Obviously, Dylan had great numbers for that game, and I thought he played really well. The running game probably wasn't where Nebraska wanted it. How did you process that?
Yeah, I think just the offense just comes down to just not being able to get enough on the ground and not being able to just get anything past, the Dylan in the pass game. And so, it essentially just all kind of came down to Dylan. I liked the RPO stuff. And honestly, again, even when they spread early on, I thought Dana was trying certain things to keep the pass rush at bay, keep guys in motion and kind of keep guys stagnant at the line of scrimmage and doing what he can to at least buy Dylan some time. I thought the offensive game plan was relatively sound for the most part. Again, down the stretch, again, would Nebraska probably have liked a few play calls back? I would like to address a few situations differently, no doubt. But I think overall, just based on what they were getting from the line and the run game, didn't really have a whole lot of complaints in how they chose to play in that second half. And honestly, I'll say this too. I think it got to a point in that second half where we know, all this the talk about Dylan specifically and his play and all of that. He was pressured one more often than not, and
And again, the amount of times he was pressured, I think by that second half, the goal was just get the ball out as quick as you can. Don't risk potentially crumbling further mentally just as a result of the pressure.
Tim, we've heard a couple of times already, whether it was right after the post-game press conference or if it was through the media availability we've had this week from Dylan, from Rule, and even just like in passing from a couple of other guys, that they wish that there was a game this week, that they wish it wasn't the bye week. They want to correct those mistakes right away. Is it better for them to have this bye week coming off of the loss to be able to address the issues, correct the issues, and have time to actually get back in practice, get some time away, and then come back and correct them? Or do you think it actually would have benefited the team if they could have moved Michigan State up a week and played a game this Saturday?
I think from a narrative standpoint, again, even from a standpoint, like, yeah, it would be nice to not have to like sit on this loss for 2 weeks and kind of deal with the discourse that comes with it. But at the same time, like, this came at a good opportunity, at a good time for Nebraska to adjust some things. I thought the way Matt Vrzal, kind of addressed the media on Monday, you could tell there's a lot on his mind, specifically how much they're stunting defensively, maybe how much they're like the way they're facing, the run defensively, the way, they're playing certain things offensively. I think this is an opportunity for them to really attack certain things, make some tweaks. And, I'd expect some changes along the offensive line coming out of the bye week. I'd expect, maybe some different personnel looks up front and maybe some tweaks to what they're doing defensively coming out of the bye week. Ideally, these guys would probably like a game just to get this off their back and move on and be able to dump this tape. But you get an opportunity to fix some things ahead of a critical stretch in the schedule.
All right, Tim, let's get to the recruiting weekend that was in this past week. Obviously, a huge recruiting weekend for Nebraska against Michigan. Seems like, from what I've read from you, it seems like just about all the high-profile targets had a really great time at Nebraska despite the loss. I think sometimes as fans we overrate the result of the game when we're talking about the experience of a recruit, although I'm sure it helps to win. What were your big takeaways from the recruiting weekend specifically?
Yeah, I thought the one thing for me that I thought was really interesting was coming out of that weekend. I thought they had a couple O-line targets in town. I thought it would not go well with them just because of the way the game played. But there is just this feeling in general from people around the program, whether it's offensive line, whatever recruit it is, by being around campus and seeing the facilities and seeing what Nebraska has. There's just this. Peyton Verghese was the one that worded it this way, and I've just heard it in different versions iterated to me of there really is no excuse to not be the best athlete possible after 3 years at Nebraska. Like with the facilities they have, with the kind of just the attention to detail from Corey Campbell and Kristen Coggin and all of that. There's just a feel from guys on campus that there's a belief, at least from an athletic standpoint, maybe not necessarily football, because that's still something that I think Nebraska is still putting together, but they can see now from a pure athletic standpoint, they can get as developed as possible at Nebraska compared to some of these other programs. And so that's what has them in the recruitment of guys like Kennedy Brown and Jamar Thompson, number 7 defensive lineman, and all the elite DBs that were on campus. So that was a big takeaway for me, was just the impact of the facilities right now. And again, and also I think something else that really stuck out to me from this week, and we've talked in the past how Nebraska's culture really sticks out to guys and they talk about culture coming out of the games. A lot of times in the past, it's been after conversations or like they hear about the culture and they talk about it afterwards. But this time, multiple guys mentioned it to me, but they were like, they didn't have to say the word culture, but you see the team operate. They go and hang out with the team in pregame. They see the team after the game. They just felt the culture, and that's something where like Rule said, this does feel like a what am I trying to say here? This does feel like coming out of this weekend, you're at a point where, hey, Nebraska, all of the talk about this being a player-led culture, all the talk about kind of Dylan leading the way, it's all true, and recruits are saying this now. Guys that have not been around this program a whole lot, but come back this weekend are like, hey, this looks completely different from a culture standpoint than it did when I visited in the spring.
So, Tim, we're at, I'd say probably a little over a year now of Nebraska starting to get some of these super high-profile guys on campus. We've talked before about how for some of them just need to get a few more wins under the belt before they can really buy into Nebraska being a place where they want to be, even if everything else lines up. It does feel like, to me at least, like, at what point does Nebraska need to break through and land one of these guys? I know none of us really count Dylan because of the connection here, which maybe we should.
None of us really count Dylan.
Well, as like a high profile recruiting win,
Yeah,
just, and maybe we should. Maybe that's stupid of us. Like, he's obviously very good, but do you feel like Nebraska needs to break through, and is there a position that you think it would matter more if they broke through with one of those high profile guys?
Yeah, I think they need to. I think it's about time. Like, ideally it happens in the 26 class with one of these defensive line or jack targets that they're after. Like, they need to address that position, and it would be nice for them to do that sooner rather than later. So that's something I'd keep an eye on. Like, I'd like to see them get that done this cycle. But I think in 27 and moving forward, like, yeah, I would say defensive line is, again, where I'm pointing to. And I think offensive line, I think when you're looking at the 27 class, with how entrenched Nebraska is in the recruitments early on of Mark Matthews, Kennedy Brown, and some of these elite offensive tackles, I don't think there's an excuse to come out of 27 without an elite offense. Like, they have to address that position and land one of these top elite offensive tackle targets. They are well positioned. Talked to some people this week. There is just a feeling with Mark Matthews that, Nebraska is the school best position to pull him out of Florida. We'll see how that recruitment develops. I think there's a long ways to go there. But that's one where I think Nebraska has to go and address sooner rather than later, just because you see what that means, what elite offensive line talent can do for your program, how that sets you up for the future. But at the same time, I would also turn this around and say, yeah, Nebraska still needs to do it, but I think I wouldn't discount landing Trey and what Trey's ultimately going to be ranked. And I wouldn't discount specifically, I think, even Torrey as well, even though I am curious to see where his ranking ultimately ends up.
Tim, I'm curious if you can just peek back or peel behind the curtain for us a little bit. So the game obviously doesn't go the way Nebraska wants it to, but they have this high-profile recruiting class there. What does that day entail for the recruits to continue to pitch the positivity of the program despite a negative outcome on Saturday?
Yeah, it's so for me and talking to guys post game, it was tough to get a couple guys immediately after the game because they went straight from that game with Trey over to the volleyball game. And that's one thing. I think Nebraska's done a really good job of pairing those two together. Some of their best visit weekends last year happened where they also had a volleyball game later that guys were able to move from the football game straight across to the volleyball game. That really helped. That I remember going a long ways with Claude and Puma, just seeing the support from the Nebraska fan base for athletics, the investment into athletics and all of that. So that really makes an impact. But again, it's just getting around the staff and getting around the program. For a lot of Nebraska's top 27 guys in particular, visiting with Trey Taylor, who's now been on campus a bunch, Trey is just essentially their tour guide. Kennedy told me he just kind of spent the week, spent the weekend in town just touring Lincoln with Trey Taylor. Same goes for Mason Halliman, who's in town for the first time. He's a rising offensive tackle target out of the greater Chicago area. So both those guys, as this has, as Trey's kind of gotten familiar with them, as they've gotten into town and gotten to explore, they've just gotten a better feel for this program. And it's not coming from a recruiting assistant or someone whose job it is to sell the program. It's coming from a fellow recruit who's telling them, like, hey, I had all these options. I turned down all these options to come do it here for these reasons. And that's something that guys are really picking up right now.
Tim, as we move into this bye week, obviously I guess it's basically over, which is good news for all of us, and we can start talking about actual football again. Is there like talking to you about Michigan? It seems like you truly think like, hey, the schemes are solid. Like it is just a personnel issue. Is there, as we're a third of the way through the season, how many teams left on the schedule do you think will be able to exploit some of those Jimmies and Joes the way that Michigan was? Is it just USC and Penn State in your mind?
I think USC, Penn State. I think Iowa, just because of the way they always play. Like, I think that's going to be a game that's close. It's going to be a game that's always going to be tough for Nebraska, and that's going to rely on Nebraska winning some individual matchups. Not to say I think Nebraska going into that game on paper maybe has more arguably potentially more pros on the roster, but it's going to come down to individual matchups. The only other one I would say potentially on the schedule moving forward is Minnesota. Like just because I think there's individuals on that Minnesota roster that are talented, and that can do that. But I really think it's Penn State and USC actually moving forward, where hey, Nebraska, like there's specific positions where the opponent can expose some of Nebraska. I think that was the part of this with Michigan too. Michigan's strengths were uniquely set up to exploit some of Nebraska's weaknesses. We knew going in the run defense was going to take a step back. That's where Michigan was uniquely built to exploit Nebraska. We knew Nebraska on the other side of the ball, hey, running the ball is not something that, and that's where Michigan's trenches came to play. And there was a lot. Hey, they lost Kenneth Grant, they lost Mason Grant, but those are veterans. That's Rayshon Benny and those guys on the interior are older players. And so all of that, I think in general, I'm still optimistic in this team, what they're going to be able to do. I think the test for this team isn't necessarily – I think Michigan State is one of those, I'm curious to see how Nebraska matches that up, but I'm not really worried about Nebraska in that one. Weirdly, the game I think is going to be my, barometer for the rest of the year is Maryland, because Maryland is young. They've got a young quarterback. They've got some young receivers that are talented but, are, relatively raw. And there's some raw members of the roster. They've got 2 young pass rushers. If Nebraska goes on the road and handles business against Maryland when they have a better overall roster and don't allow the individual better players on Maryland's roster to maybe take over that game, then I'm okay, I feel better about Nebraska potentially closing out this year on a high note, taking care of business against UCLA and Iowa and, and playing USC and Penn State close.
Tim, how much pressure is on the program, not only to show improvement against Michigan State, but just to have, essentially a perfect October? That's something like Ravi and I have talked about a little bit, that I just see this as a way that Nebraska is going to have to, if they want to meet their preseason expectations, there's no way that that October can have any losses. Do you think the team feels that? Is that something that's kind of being translated, just the way that the schedule fell and how they can prepare for essentially that next top 25 matchup, which would probably be USC?
Yeah, I think they recognize, hey, the next month, the opportunity there to kind of stack some wins and build some momentum going into the USC game. But I don't think it's anything where it's hey, if we don't go undefeated this year, our goals are off the table. I do still think the staff believes this is a roster that's going to get better as the season progresses. I tend to agree, just because of some of the growth we've seen from young guys on the roster already this year, and specifically on the defensive side of the ball, what this could potentially look like by mid-November, as they continue to develop, and if they, really do actually start to come together, and they continue on this path. But yeah, I think that's where I'm at. I think this roster, and I think the way Rule and these guys, it is truly a week at a time focused, kind of focusing on the task at hand, the nameless face of this opponent. That is all real. But yeah, I think at the same time they recognize the opportunity ahead. Would like to go 4-0 here in the next few weeks before USC, but if they don't, I don't necessarily think the goals are off the table. Okay, would it surprise you necessarily if Nebraska maybe slips up and loses to Minnesota, but turns around and beats USC, a team that they maybe match up a little bit better with, and then close out with a win against Iowa and still finish with 2 to 3 losses, but that third loss is to Minnesota instead of an Iowa or a USC.
Yeah, that's a good point, Tim. I do think you bring up a good point about the matchups. I do think that there are certain places where Nebraska might be overall more talented, but that specific teams may have strengths where Nebraska isn't as strong. You brought up offensive line as a place you thought you might see some shakeups. I'm assuming you mean Pritchett playing a more prominent role there. If I'm wrong, you can correct me. But is there any other place that you're looking at this roster and you're thinking, yeah, I think we might see some new faces at least get a shot at some of these other spots?
I'm not really sure. As of this point, I think just because of where we're at on the defensive side of the ball with Hurrdat, I wonder a little bit there. kind of how they move the secondary around, because of the way they addressed in the immediate aftermath of Hartzog missing that Houston Christian game, or in that first drive, they kind of moved. They played, Donovan at outside corner, and then they moved Sierra to nickel. So I'm curious long term how they address that. Is it Sierra and Andrew Marshall long term, and Jameer's the starting nickel, or is it going to be so I'm curious how they address that. Rex Guthrie, I thought that was the reason we saw more Rex in the second half. That he's not necessarily the best guy for every matchup, but against, I think, Minnesota and Penn State and Iowa, some of these teams that are going to want to run on Nebraska's front, I think, having a guy like Guthrie in the back to clean up is important. So I'm expecting to see a little more there. Other than that, not sure. I think the other one I would really look at, just because I think he's playing quick and Nebraska kind of has a play speed issue there, is maybe more Dawson Merritt at linebacker.
Yeah, that's the one I was thinking of as well. I mean, I think you may see some changes in the secondary. Again, the Malcolm Hartzog variable is an interesting part there, but I think this is, and we were doing hot takes earlier, so I'll give you one here. I think by the end of the year, we may look at Dawson Merritt as Nebraska's best linebacker.
Yeah, I mean, there's a world where that, for sure. I think there's a lot of hey, Javen Wright's out there. He's a veteran. He's doing good stuff as a veteran and providing a solid veteran presence. I think Vincent Savers is still figuring out who he is within this defense, and I think that's a role that the defense is also kind of figuring out where he fits in best.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, I think Dawson has a chance just because of the way he plays and how fast it's coming together for him.
Yeah.
You and I talked a lot about in preseason and before he even got here about what the issue, projecting Dawson and what year one would look like, and all the concerns about adding the weight and adapting to play speed. It's all happened a lot faster than I expected. So with this bye, as we dive into conference play, he does have this month to really ramp up. And I mean, like you said, would it surprise you if he's starting or playing a lion's share of the linebacker snaps come Penn State?
Absolutely not. No, I think you're going to see more and more Dawson Merritt.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's our guy, Tim Verghese, Inside Nebraska. Great stuff as always, Tim. Enjoy your bye week. Have a little. There's plenty going on in college football, so I'm sure that will keep you busy. But enjoy your week off from Nebraska.
Yes, for sure. Should enjoy a good day of games. So appreciate you guys. Have a good weekend.
All right, thank you, Tim. That's Tim Verghese from Inside Nebraska. We'll take a quick break here. Got to remind you though. Make sure you go check out our friends at Big Brothers, Big Sisters of the Midlands. It's bbbsmidlands.org. They're doing a campaign, 60 men in 60 days to become mentors. Currently, 70% of the youth on their wait list are boys just waiting for a male mentor to connect with. You don't have to be perfect. It just takes 4 hours a month, and the littlest things can make the biggest impacts. Make sure you get to bbbsmidlands.org to find out more and to sign up to be a mentor. That's Austin. I'm Ravi. We'll be back. More Hurrdat Sports Live coming up next.
This September at Edwards Hyundai, lease the 2025 Hyundai Tucson SE all-wheel drive, starting at just $249 a month. Style, tech, and value that makes getting back to busy easier. Or upgrade to luxury SUV comfort with the 2025 Hyundai Santa Fe Calligraphy. Take $7,000 off MSRP on every remaining model in stock. Big savings, but only while they last. Back to busy means more Hyundai savings this September at Edwards. It pays to make the drive to Edwards Hyundai in Council Bluffs.
You mentioned kind of the growth of the franchise in general over the next few years. I think that's something a lot of people are really excited about. As you in your position sit here and you go, okay, there's some things I have a really good grasp on. Mm-hmm. There's some things that I'm going to need some help on. How do you, as you kind of start mapping out, as I'm sure you and Gary and Jamie and Marty, everybody are mapping this out over the next 3, 5, 10 years, whatever that looks like. What's the thing you're most excited about the both, I guess, immediate and long-term growth of the club?
Immediately, I would say, there's so much opportunity for people within our organization. So I think I've got 4 or 6 job postings right now in Teamworks.
Mm-hmm.
So we're just continuing to try and build out, our operations, our sales, our everything that supports the organization as a whole, building that out and building that team. So that to me is very exciting, and giving people the opportunity they're already in the organization to find space that they can thrive and grow.
Imagine your first dream home and the feeling of walking inside for the first time. With Centrist Federal Credit Union's First Time Home Buyers program, you are at the doorstep of bringing your vision to life. Welcome home. From your neighborhood mortgage experts, Centrist Federal Credit Union. We are where you are.
You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Live.
Welcome back, Hurrdat Sports Live, presented by Centrist Federal Credit Union. That's Austin. I'm Ravi here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. Got to remind you, as always, about our friends over at Dingman's Collision Center. If you've got an issue with your vehicle and need some auto body repair, Dingman's is the best place to go in the Omaha metro area. They're locally and family owned and operated. Their roots run deep right here in Omaha, just like yours do. Their families are raised here. Sorry, I got Pop-Tarts in my throat. Excuse me. And they'll appreciate me, even though I got Pop-Tarts in my throat when I'm talking about them. Their families are raised here, and they take pride in serving the same communities that they live in each and every day. But it's not just about the community. They also invest in cutting-edge technology to make sure that you've got the best for your vehicle. Go check them out, dingmans.com. They've been voted first place best of Omaha for 20 straight years for auto body repair, and there's a reason for that. It's Dingman's Collision Center. Make sure you check them out. All right. We've talked a lot about kind of the big weekend that is college football coming up here. I want to, before we get to bet on it, I want to go through, I like to call these find out games. I make a list every week. Sometimes we get to it with DB, sometimes we don't.
Yeah.
But I like to make a list every week of games that
like an F around and find out game?
Yeah, more just like will I learn about these people? Okay. Like, will I learn about these teams, right? Sometimes it's the really big games, sometimes it's not. But there's a few in here that I'm really interested to see what happens. One of them is happening tonight. Well, actually, two of them are kind of happening tonight.
Bennington, Gretna?
Yes, 100%. No, really, actually pretty good Friday night slate of football.
Yeah.
You've got Florida State, Virginia first. That's early. This is one of those games where Florida State hasn't had a test since Alabama. It appears that Virginia is better than they have been in years past. They're 3-1, I believe, on the season so far, and
quietly already somewhat written off before the season even started.
Yeah, I mean, I just think we assume Virginia's going to be bad because they've been bad for quite a while.
Right.
But it's at Virginia. It's only a 6.5-point spread in favor of Florida State, which leads me to believe that Vegas, like, that's smaller than I would have guessed.
Mm-hmm.
If I guessed coming into this, I would have guessed a double-digit spread on this one. So that number is a little suspicious to me. I think we find out either, hey, Virginia's pretty good, or Florida State might just kind of wagon through the ACC.
Do you still need to be talked into Florida State being good, or do you think that they've proven themselves already? I have my opinion. I think that they have proven themselves. I'm convinced that they're trending towards a playoff team. They're not in the Miami category of last year, where I was still like, I don't know, that defense not good enough. Cam Ward's really good. I thought overall in its entirety, I think Florida State's a better ACC contender playoff representative than Miami was at this point last season.
I would agree with that for sure. I also think Miami might be a better candidate this year than Florida State is.
Yeah, 100%, yeah.
I think it's a toss-up between those two teams.
I would say, I mean, if you want hot take market, I would actually say that I think Miami is the number 2 team in the country.
I mean, maybe, yeah. Like, they've looked really, really good. I'm higher on Carson Beck than most people are. He's played in a ton of big games. Yes, he's going to give the other team probably 1 or 2 throws a game that you're like, they're going to have a chance on that one.
Right.
But certainly he's no DJ Lagway, but he certainly is a guy that's not going to get scared off by a moment. Right. And so I think that matters a ton if you're a quarterback. It's not that I need to see it to know that Florida State's good. I know they're good. It's, are they mature enough to win tough games against non-sexy opponents, especially when you've got Miami coming up next week?
Yeah.
Really easy to look past Virginia if you're not emotionally mature enough as a football team. That's what I think you find out about Florida State today. Not are they good or not. That's a good football team. They're talented. And like Gus Malzahn, Tony White, they're well coached. Mike Norvell knows what he's doing. It's not about that part. It's where's the maturity level at to be able to reach that level week in, week out.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, no matter if Florida State wins, doesn't matter how they win today, like, they should get credit for a victory
100%.
Because it's a Friday night. It's a weird setting
on the road.
You're playing actually a pretty decent team. And it's like what we've kind of talked about earlier this week too. And it's almost one of those games, like, with Nebraska moving forward, you're not going to get credit for winning some of the games that you need to win moving forward, right?
You just have to win them.
In October, you have to win them. Florida State needs to win this game. They get no credit for being Virginia,
100%,
but they will get all the blame for losing.
And that's a tough place to be as any team, right? Like, that's why, in non-con, there's not a lot of benefit in scheduling certain teams. Obviously, this is a conference game, so you can't get around it. But we see this in basketball all the time. People are like, why doesn't Wichita State and Kansas play every year? Kansas has nothing to gain there.
Right, exactly.
Right?
Yep.
Like, there's nothing to gain in some of these situations. I do think it says a lot about the maturity of your football team, though, if you are able to come out, execute, not look ahead, and take care of business when you are the superior team.
Yep.
What I do find annoying is, you're going to be surprised, it has to do with the SEC.
Oh, whoa.
If there was a corollary to Virginia in the SEC, and there is every year, so some team that goes 3-1 that's a little bit better than we think, they start off pretty well. So let's call it like every once in a while Kentucky will have a decent year. And
I was thinking even Mississippi State.
Yeah, Mississippi State's 4-0
Yeah.
This year. That's like, if Mississippi State ends up winning 6 or 7 games, we'll be like, Mississippi State.
Yep.
But if Virginia makes a bowl game, we'll be like, it's Virginia.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? So, like, that's, if you're in the SEC and you're playing a game just like this, like, I think Mississippi State's on my Tennessee plays Mississippi State this week.
Right.
That's a game. Mississippi State's 4-0. If Mississippi State wins that game, it'll be like, Mississippi State's for real. They'll be 5-0. They beat Tennessee. If the opposite happens with Florida State and Virginia, the narrative will not be the same.
Right.
It'll be like, Florida State choked. They lost to this crap.
They were looking ahead.
Yeah,
they were
looking ahead to Miami.
Focused.
Lost to a crap Virginia team. So that's the part that's annoying, is if you just put different labels on these things, even if they were the exact same, we'd feel differently about it.
Right. Yeah.
The royal we, not
right.
me.
Yeah. No, I think I will. Generally speaking, this desk will have to give credit to Florida State no matter how they win the game, because again, it might end up being a weird game. Florida State might win it in a walk-off field goal.
Yeah.
You never know. But if they win the game, give them the credit, because then the next week, you can't blame them for looking ahead. But that is the difference between Florida State teams of years past, including a 2-10 team last year, that They couldn't get up for the big games last year. They couldn't get up for any games last year.
Yeah.
And they were always peeking ahead at the next game because they overlooked their first matchup with Georgia Tech and lost. They overlooked their next matchup with Boston College and lost. And so
them go steal their quarterback.
And then overcoming every single one of those Dragons through the beginning part of this season, that's big for a team that has college football playoff aspirations.
Absolutely. Next one for me, I do think TCU Arizona State is really interesting.
Okay, so I have a friend who is down in Arizona right now for a week-long vacation. Hiked the Grand Canyon 2 days ago. And he was sending me his parlay before he leaves for his flight to show me what he wanted. And he put that Arizona State wins outright over TCU. I am not that confident in that because I think TCU is very good. And I was not a believer of the Horned Frogs entering into the season. I wasn't a believer of them 2 weeks ago when I was trying to hype up Iowa State as much as possible. They're for real. And I think this is a game that they will continue to prove that they are for real because the only thing the Big 12 teams can do right now to prove that they're better than everyone else is beat up on the team that beat up everyone else last year publicly. So if everyone beats Arizona State, it kind of gives you that one card of, hey, national significance, here you go. You get to hold on to this one.
Here's the problem, though. If Arizona State doesn't win enough games, they'll just be like, oh, Arizona State was a fluke last year. Doesn't matter anymore.
But you have to remember, we're in the moment right now, right? Everyone's still, some people still think Arizona State's still in the top 25, and they're just hanging out. TCU's a very good team, though. They're a very good team. And I hope a lot of people can dual screen this game tonight because I think it'll be a lot of fun to be able to have people see, what they have going on.
Here's why I think this game's important for a couple reasons. It seems like nationally, Arizona State's already been written off.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I just kind of publicly did that.
Yeah,
so.
And their one loss. Like, if Mississippi State's actually good, a 4-point loss to Mississippi State is not they're 3-1.
Yep.
They've got to win over Baylor, who.
And that was in Starksville. That's not an easy place to go down to.
At Mississippi State. Like, it was the second game of the season, so we didn't know that Mississippi State was going to be 4-0. Yeah. That just felt like a bad loss to a team that's usually pretty bad.
Yeah, you got 60,000 people with cowbells who can't read. That's a really tough environment. Like.
Yes, it is. Arizona State, though, they're 3-1. They just beat Baylor, who I think people still think is pretty good. I think their quarterback, Sawyer Robertson's really good. They won that game. It was only a 4-point loss to. It was only a 4-point loss to Mississippi State. I think Arizona State has been written off too quickly because of that loss, and so I'm really interested to see what it looks like tonight against TCU. I also think for TCU, this is a big game. The win against North Carolina kind of propelled them, but now we're like, oh, North Carolina sucks. Like sucks. And so now they need to start building the resume against teams that might be better than that. So I think this is a really interesting one. Obviously, premier quarterback matchup, Sam Leavitt and Josh Hoover.
Yeah.
Like, I know Sam Leavitt has some shines coming off of him, but really, really good quarterback matchup.
Yeah.
Genuinely two very good games tonight.
Yeah.
Which you don't usually get on a Friday night in college football.
Not saying that the Big 12 teams don't, as you've mentioned a couple of times, they don't have the longest leash when it comes to trying to make a playoff resume. But man, this TCU schedule is turning out to be a little bit brutal here, especially in that backstretch. I mean, so let's say that they beat Arizona State, right? They would be 4-0 at that point in the season. Then next week they would play at home against Colorado. They're on the road the following week at Kansas State, which, say what you will about the Wildcats. Baylor then is the week after that. You get them at home. You travel to West Virginia the week after that. You get a bye week, and then you play at home against Iowa State, which, if both teams are undefeated, that could be a top 15 game. And then the very next week you are on the road at BYU. That's a brutal slate of Big 12 games for TCU.
Yes.
And it starts here with Arizona State as well. So if TCU is as good as I think that they could be, they've got a lot of road to be able to travel when they get to that Iowa State game. That could basically decide which one of those two teams is playing in the Big 12 title game. That's going to be tough.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we're going to see this over and over and over again in the Big 12, like week after week. I think that's
Texas Tech's going to be right there too, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Texas Tech. I still think Utah's really good. Like, there's a lot of really good teams in this conference. DB and I talked about that when we were talking quarterbacks at the start of the year. Certainly the deepest quarterback conference, and I think that's going to translate to being the deepest conference. And some of the guys that we had written off, in like Noah Fifida, who had been really good a couple years ago, looks like he's back to his form at Arizona. Like, this league's going to be a gauntlet.
I think the Big 12 you could summarize as the don't overreact each week league.
Yeah.
Because you could easily write off Utah after what Texas Tech did to them last week. You could easily look at some other schools. Like
I think Texas Tech's just really good.
After 3 weeks, I was ready to hand Iowa State the Big 12 title.
Me too,
I still lean that way.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we could get to a point where Iowa State loses, 3 games in a row that they're not supposed to, and everything is still up for grabs for everybody.
100%. Yeah, I think the Big 12 is going to be one of my favorite conferences to watch this year. I think it's going to be absolutely fascinating.
Except Oklahoma State. Congrats to everyone who plays them because they're just going to win. So that's
just
brutal. Sorry, Pokes. My bad. It's bad.
It's real bad. We talked about coaches at a lot of different spots. Didn't really talk about who's a good fit for Oklahoma State. I don't know what their situation is. Like, I don't know
who wants to come back.
Well, I also don't know what the money situation looked like because until T. Boone Pickens died, the money was flowing, right? Like it was he was just writing checks and everything was great. I assume someone has access to that money still. I don't know if they have an affinity for Oklahoma State the way Pickens did. So, like, I don't know if the money's still there and Gundy just didn't want to spend it because he didn't like NIL and transfer portal, whatever, or if when he died, the money dried up. I really don't know.
Yeah.
That, I think, is a huge question as to whether or not this is a good job or not.
Right.
I would take my chances with that job over UCLA because I know UCLA is a bad job with no resources. There's at least a chance Oklahoma State has some resources.
You know who I've actually seen
connected
to this or like rumored to this job? Colin Klein.
I've heard that.
Isn't that interesting?
He's the A&M OC at this point.
Yeah, and
the
so
former K-State quarterback.
Yeah, and so people are saying, "Oh, well, you never do that for the Big 12 connection." I think he probably would.
Absolutely.
Because
what are we talking about?
I don't think the K-State job is going to. Well, I mean, if they completely bought him out, maybe. But I don't think that he would.
Not
be,
this year.
Yeah,
they're not. No, they're not firing Chris.
Yeah,
Freeman.
I listen. If you get a call from a Big 12 school and you're an SEC offensive coordinator, I think you probably take that, right?
You certainly take the call. I don't know if he takes the job, but like
true.
you're listening for sure.
Yeah.
The other guys I've heard, Jeff Traylor at UTSA and
There's another former. Is it like Zach Robinson or something?
Yeah,
like that?
Zach Robinson's a current NFL offensive coordinator.
Yes. Former quarterback. Yeah.
A lot of he was like their 2007, 2009 range, like their heyday quarterback when at the like peak of the Oklahoma State powers.
They're in a weird spot though that I agree with you that we just named 3 people, maybe they're not the top of the list, but if those 3 people said no and you call them, who do you call next? Because that's a huge cliff jump.
There's another name that we haven't mentioned yet. GJ Kinney at Texas State is another guy that people are super high on. But outside of those 4 names, you've got a guy with obviously in Zach Robinson, which I think he says no. I think a lot of people think he's going to be an NFL head coach soon.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing he says no. And then you've got 2 current Group of 5 Texas head coaches. I think either of those would be a good hire. But then you've got a guy that's totally inexperienced in terms of head coaching ability.
Yeah.
Right. So no idea what to do with Colin Klein there either. Now, Kirby Smart also had no head coaching experience when he took over Georgia.
That's true.
That has worked out just fine.
Well, he's a notable defensive back, so that's why he had so much success there.
He also
you would never know looking at him.
Yeah, maybe not. Probably not the first position, I would have guessed, but that's okay.
No, Kirby, you were the kicker, right?
You played backup guard. No, I think that's a job they'll probably try and find someone with head coaching experience. I don't think them or UCLA is landing a sitting head coach.
Yeah, that's probably fair. Should we do bet on it?
Yeah, before we get to Mike Sautter here, let's get to Bet On It, brought to you by Warhorse Sportsbook, the best place in Nebraska to place your sports bets. Go download the app, the Warhorse app. You can build your bets on there, then go to the casino either in Lincoln or Omaha. They just renovated both of them. They're beautiful. Go and place your bets in person there after you've built them on the app. A couple of these games in Bet On It are games that we've talked about already here, and some of them are ones we didn't get to. Florida State is a 6.5-point favorite against Virginia.
Yeah.
What say you?
I know this isn't the option you gave me, but I would take Florida State outright just to win. But I said I think it's going to be a weird game. I think 6.5 is too much. I think it's just going to be It's going to be something shorter than that. So take Virginia.
Virginia to cover the spread. Yeah. I'll take Florida State because I'm a homer.
Fair.
TCU is
Notably, you've lived in Tallahassee.
No, but my dog's name was Tallahassee.
Oh, very good. Okay.
TCU is a 3.5-point dog at Arizona State.
So you say TCU is a dog, 3.5? That's crazy.
Let me make sure that is the up-to-date line.
No, I would take TCU outright. I mean, that's the play. I love TCU, and I know you were trying to convince me of Arizona State, but you're not going to do it this time. The third time this week, you're not convincing me of nothing. It's TCU.
I think I'm going Arizona State here. Next one up, we've got USC is a 6.5-point favorite against Illinois. This game is fascinating.
I hate this game
because Illinois just got their heads beat in by Indiana.
Yeah.
I have no idea what to do with that information.
Yeah.
No idea.
I don't even understand. And also, USC went from the latest kickoff time in college football the last week to one of the earliest kickoff times in college football.
It's basically like playing on Friday.
Yes.
I mean, for them, it's essentially
yes.
like
Yeah.
losing a whole day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This game is fascinating. 6.5 doesn't make any sense for it seems really low for what we saw from Illinois last week. I personally am buying an Illinois bounce back. I don't know if they win outright. I am going to have them cover the spread. I think they might win outright. I'm taking Illinois plus the 6.5.
I think they cover the spread 100%. I'm with you that I'm a bit of a toss-up, but for whatever reason right now, I'm just not trusting USC in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
I would have given more credence to USC leaning if Illinois might have played a lot better last week and just felt a little bit better about a more even matchup. But there's something about I would love to. I need to go back and I need to look to see what Bielema's record is coming off of a loss because I feel like it's pretty good. I don't think he really takes 2 in a row.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I think this is one of those where it's a weird, like we were talking with Tim in Nebraska. Illinois, I think, is a bad matchup for USC. Hyper physical. I know that USC's improved in that area this year, but I still don't think they're nearly on the level as Illinois in terms of physicality. I think this is a game they could get beat up on.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take Illinois there. One of the big ones of the week, LSU is a 1.5-point dog at Ole Miss.
I am taking LSU outright in that one.
Ooh.
Yeah, because Lane Kiffin, big game. Come on. What are we even talking about?
I am taking Ole Miss. I will take the points. I will take the money line. I am. Listen, I'm a Trinidad Chambliss believer.
The name's great.
It's incredible.
The name is incredible.
And I am definitely swayed by that.
He wins this game. Heisman frontrunner.
Trinidad Chambliss, D2 transfer, Ferris State.
D2 power. You wouldn't know that.
They're coming off national title. I do know that.
Yeah, because someone told you.
Well, I saw TikTok. But I'm taking Ole Miss. I'm 100% swayed by my love for Lane Kiffin and my love for Trinidad Chambliss's name. And the fact that I think it's absolutely hilarious that a D2 guy stole the job of Austin Simmons, who I was told was supposed to be a top 10 quarterback in the country this year. So fits into my narrative, which I love. I love my narratives when they're right. And so I'm taking Ole Miss here.
I love that. Good for you.
All right, let's get to the other couple big games here. Oregon is a 3.5-point dog at Penn State.
Okay, I'm really not trying to be a broken record right here, but I have loved Oregon from the start of the season, even before then. Dante Moore guy, big Dante for Heisman. But
he's having a great year.
I know it's going to be wide out. I know it's going to be Penn State. I know Oregon's got to fly across the entire continent to get there. It's Oregon. And it will be Oregon by the end of the night, and we were going to learn. There were going to be, listen, big line overreaction on Saturday night's going to have just a heyday with James Franklin, and they won't know what to do because I think Oregon's going to actually stomp them into the mud.
Oh,
I would take Oregon and maybe even more than a touchdown. I feel very confident.
That's why I do think Oregon's better.
Yes,
than Penn State. The whiteout, the night game, all of that, the travel is giving me pause. Typically, it's worse going east to west than west to east, is what we found out. So I'm trying to keep that in mind. I just think Oregon's better, and so I don't want to overthink it too much. I am getting points here. I will take Oregon. I'm probably just going points. It's over a key number, so I'll just take the points for Oregon. I'm not going to take the money line. I do think Oregon wins this game. Alabama, Georgia. Alabama's a 2.5-point dog at Georgia.
Georgia. I mean, that feels easy.
Yeah, I think this is Georgia. I just think they're better. I think Alabama is destined to fire a really good head coach this year.
Isn't it funny how we went from Alabama's completely dead to basically just no one talked about Alabama, but yet they still, and you're gonna love this. The AP poll still somehow credits them for all these victories they got over Ulm. Like, what are we talking about?
ULM.
Yeah, like
Ulm.
They just happen to keep getting wins, and they're one of the repeated jumpers in the AP poll and continuing to gain a lot of recognition for it. They're in the mid-teens now. They weren't at 20 like they were after their loss in week 1. But seriously, it's crazy. It's nuts because Alabama's going to get a lot of credit for being in this game. I think Georgia is going to take care of business. I don't think Georgia and Alabama are on the same playing field when they line up on Saturday.
Is it possible that we over-penalized Alabama for the Florida State loss if Florida State's actually really that good?
Well, we still thought they were dog poop Florida State.
Yeah,
so
right.
That's what it was.
That's what I mean.
Right?
So, did they get over-penalized?
Yeah.
Alabama, because, they fell 16 spots or something,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of crazy when you're like, oh, Florida State might actually be good.
Yeah.
So that's something I think about here. I do think Georgia's just better.
Yes.
They're at home. I think they're a better football team. I'm taking Georgia. Last one here, since we have an extra minute.
Oh, Pat in chat said, put the wedding fund on Oregon alternate line. Sure, Dr. Fiance won't mind.
Hey, we're balling out for the wedding there.
We were budgeting last night.
There we
so
go.
That maybe hey, honey, guess what we got?
We just got chocolate fountain money. Indiana is a 8.5-point favorite against Iowa. Much like the Illinois game, I have no idea what to do with this. I never know what to do with Kurt Cignetti.
And 8.5 is so much.
It's a big number.
It's so much.
Iowa and
does this not feel okay? So it's not the same name brand.
Yeah.
Does this not feel like a Kinnick game that Iowa just somehow wins 13-10?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
It has all the recipe and formula. You got Kirk Ferentz stirring the big pot, witch's brew right
this
there.
This feels
just doing
like
his thing.
one of those. Ohio State comes in, they're riding high, and Iowa's like, not so fast, my friends.
Yeah. Jason likes Indiana. He says spanking Iowa.
I'm taking
Put him
Iowa
over the
here.
knee.
Give me Iowa here.
I think I believe what I believe. I think I have to go Iowa too.
There you go.
At least in points. I mean, 8.5 is gigantic.
8.5 is a big number.
I don't firmly believe that Iowa's going to lose by 8.5. Could they lose the game? Yeah,
Sure.
but I don't think they're going to lose by 8.5.
Yeah, it's above a key number. I feel okay there.
I think the real question is, how does Kurt feel about this game, right? Because
Yeah.
if Cignetti wants to again prove a point, he seems to come out and prove points very often.
He does. Yeah, he does. I'll be.
Then they play like a number 5 team, and then he just is like, oh no.
Then he gets stomped into a hole by Ohio State. That is Bet On It, brought to you by Warhorse Sportsbook. Best place in Omaha to place your sports bets. Get the app, then go to the casino and place your bets in person. That's Austin. I'm Ravi. Coming up next, we're going to have Mike Sautter of Hurrdat Sports and NebPreps. Mike and Verghese were very close, so we're going to give Mike as much grace as he needs here. Just a heads up. We will try and get to as much high school stuff as possible, but I know it's going to be a really challenging day for Mike as well. So just wanted to put that out there. Like I said, it's a weird show today. Everything feels a little bit off, and but we appreciate all the thoughts and love in the comments and in the chat. I'm sure Verghese would appreciate it as well. Mike Sautter coming up next year on Hurrdat Sports Live.
Back to busy means Kia savings this September at Edwards Kia. Lease the 2026 Kia Sportage starting at just $299 a month, 36 months with zero due-it signing. Capability, comfort, and ready for back to busy. Or drive the 2026 Kia Seltos, lease starting at $279 a month, 36 months with zero due-it signing. Compact SUV, big value built for the season.
It pays to make the drive.
It pays to make the drive to Edwards Kia in Council Bluffs.
Absolutely. Obviously, you want to go 12-0, but that wasn't the goal. Like, we wanted to grow as a team. We wanted to prove to ourselves that we are good enough to compete with anyone, and I think they did that. And that was another piece of the conversation yesterday that really wasn't on my agenda. Ava Martin actually kind of thought it was important to bring that up again yesterday, of making sure we're continuously reminding ourselves of what the big goals are for this season, and having a goal in practices to continue to remind ourselves of those. And so I feel like, with the exception of maybe one set, we were there in every one of them, and so we learned some little things that we need to correct, some runs that we need to stop, and I thought we did a really nice job of that the whole last week of our preseason. I think offensively we started to click. We were able to start using the right back more, and so I thought you saw our offensive efficiency really grow in those last week and a half of the preseason.
You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Live.
Oh yeah, no doubt, no doubt.
Mike Sautter.
Yeah.
Mike Sautter.
Oh man, you're gonna put me on the spot.
Mike Sautter.
Welcome back. Hurrdat Sports Live, presented by Centrist Federal Credit Union. That's Austin Jacobson. I'm Ravi Lulla here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. We are joined now by our friend and colleague Mike Sautter, Hurrdat Sports and NebPreps. Mike, I know this is a super tough day and a super tough ask of you. I appreciate you joining us.
Yeah. I want to have some fun, because that's what Matt was all about. So I was going to start just by coming in here and saying, "What's up, fuckers?" Because that's what he said every week. And yeah. I also, if you guys don't mind, I have an extra grease board because, Matt liked his grease board.
Yeah.
So I would like to do something like this. It says, Vrzal words you can't say on the radio.
Perfect. I'm in, Mike. Let's go. Let's roll.
So this is a very too big grease board for this area. But I have red, and then I have green. Green means go. So those are like the words you can say and the words you can't say. So we're going to start with fuckers because he liked to say that. And I was just looking back, obviously, through text messages and Father's Day, he sent in our group chat with me and Damon on Father's Day, he said, let's go with exclamation marks. And he said, Happy Father's Day, fuckers. And like with exclamation marks. So we're going to go with fuckers because you can't say that on the radio. And my handwriting sucks. So
it's a good thing we're not on.
What other Vrzal words did he say that you can't actually say on live radio?
Get your shit together.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Shit together. Okay. Shit. I think to be quite honest, knowing Vrzal, he hated like entitled people and kids.
Yeah.
And hated them. And he also was like, like with all the consternation that's going on with high school football now and the scoring and stuff, he would just say, get better. Like he would just say, just get better, coach harder, do whatever, just be better. And that's obviously something that he would do and say. He also, every time that I went into his I won't call it shop, he just knew what the order was. Like he knew like I wanted a basic bitch when it comes to eating food. I eat like a 12-year-old. And he just knew I wanted just beef pizza and nothing else. And then I remember the last time I was there was last week, and he was there, but someone else was helping me, and he said, hey, I asked him, I said, what, like the wings, what do I get? Like, what I don't know what they're called, but I get them like this way. And he just knew it. And he just told the person that was helping me, he's like, yeah, they're just baked buffalo. Like he just knew what I liked. And I didn't even know what I liked, but he knew what I liked. And he knew that with everybody. So that's something too. Okay, I want to finish out this word thing. And I don't really even remember. So Shane, if you got some drops, that would be great. You could help me out here, big dog. Well, little dog, because you're not really big.
He would always get on DB about Damon obviously not wanting to swear, but then he would be like, oh, but you can say this, but instead went that. And I believe Jason put that in there, and great, now my mom's going to be mad at me, but I believe one of them was cocksucker.
Yes, he said cocksucker. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he did. That was, you can't say that on the radio.
Called people dicks.
Yep.
Called people dicks.
You're a dick.
Yeah, called everyone a dick. Yep. He also, I'm going to put this on there because this is my memory of him, is he always called me Mikey, and I hate that. Like I can't stand that. And he's the only person in the world that I allow to call me Mikey. And I just kind of did. I don't know why I let him do it, but he did. And it was, why I hate it is because you guys weren't alive probably, but the Mikey Likes It commercials, Austin, you definitely weren't alive. But when I grew up, all my aunts and uncles, they called me Mikey all the time. It drove me nuts. Yeah. So I'm going to put that you can't say that on the radio because no one ever should call me that because I'll take major offense. So these are just the red words. I don't think we're going to get to green because he's, chicken shit was another one he would say a lot. Yep. So you can't say that on the radio. This board is very heavy, by the way, with one hand.
I think you're doing great.
Yeah, it's very big. Look at this thing; it's huge.
I know we might make a more economically sized one for the word list.
Yeah, that's okay. It's just what I had sitting around. So, but no, that's good. This is my ode to my friend and to all of our friend, Matt Vrzal, who is one of the best humans. Just one of the best guys ever. And just meant a lot to a lot of people. He's a special, special human and everybody's friend and treated everyone with respect. Even if you barely knew him and if you didn't know him, you knew he was joking with you. And I will say that I know Damon and Matt were best friends. And I'm so sorry for that because they talked all the time, every day. And it's just, he meant a lot to a lot of people. And he, I don't know, there's stories, and I called people last night and talked to just people in the Scut community and how much he meant to just that community of people. And no matter, Scut gets shit on all the time, and but they're good people, and they work hard and care about kids. And yes, they care about winning, and it's important. And but this is just a story about Matt, and this was yesterday. Scott's art teacher was doing an art project, and she wanted new pizza boxes and non-greasy ones or used ones, and she wanted 40. And so they called up there, and Matt had them ready for them to pick up within the hour for free, just because he's just helping. I will say that I learned a lot about football from Matt. Him and I just had talks all the time about I'd call and we just chat, and he taught me a ton. I'd go to, when he was coaching at Scud, I'd go to practice and I'd just hang out with the linemen because I wanted to see him coach. And he always had, like, he never had the biggest linemen, but they were always tough as shit. And that's because Matt Vrzal was tough as shit. Just a great, great man. And he was, I know, like, Damon's daughter, Zoe, and there's other kids like that, like my kids. We'd go in there and he would just make my kids light up and want to give them high fives and hugs. And we always just called him Uncle Matt. Because that's who he was to a lot of just our kids, like our, his friends' kids. And, I know, again, I know, like, Damon spent a lot of time there. Zoe, Damon's kids, same way. Like, he just treated everyone so good. And he'd have, like, ice cream sandwiches for kids. And, like, they looked forward to it. And we'd go there and eat for lunch, me and my, even, like, we'd just stop in and I'd tell my kids, hey, you guys want to go to Matt's? And it wasn't Paisans. It was Matt's Pizza Place. That's what my kids called it. Let's go to Matt's. Let's go to Matt's Pizza Place. And we just stop in that. We'd be out doing something and let's swing by Matt's. But first you had to make sure his stupid red and black blazer was there, sitting there, because if it wasn't, he wasn't there. But I will tell you what, about 9 times out of 10, he was always there. And we wouldn't even go in if he was, if he wasn't, I don't see his truck, he's probably not there. And then you call him and he'd say, well, I'm not there, or I'll be there, I'll be back there in a little bit, or I'm doing something, I'll be out there in a minute, or whatever. And I know the people that worked for him really cared about him. And I just feel for those people, because they counted on him to obviously, like, feed their family and pay rent and do stuff like that. So I don't know what the future holds for that place, but if it stays going, it won't be the same. And it was because of Matt. And he's a special guy. So anyway, all right, let's talk about something else. Because I will tell you what, Matt Vrzal would want me just to work. So that he would say, quit feeling sorry for me and yourself and all that, and just go to work. So
we do appreciate you being vulnerable with us and sharing that about Verz, your friend. And I think a lot of people identify, especially people who have been to Paisans, identify with what you're talking about, whether they really knew him well or not. I'll just say a couple things here while I give you a minute. There was a couple times I'd go in there and especially if it wasn't too busy, he'd sit down and just talk to people while they're eating, right? He'd just sit down and go from table to table. And a couple times I would ask, like, oh, how do you know them? And he'd be like, oh, I don't. They just come in sometimes. And he'd sit there and he'd talk for 15, 20, however long he had, right? And just with people that he didn't really know, even, except for they took the time to come to his place. And I thought that always said a lot. And then one thing that's always really stuck out to me, and this is years ago at this point, I went in there for dinner one day, and he wasn't in there. And I got a text from him about 10, 15 minutes after I had left. And he said, hey, man, my staff just told me you were in here. I'm sorry I missed you. And, like, he didn't have to do that. Like, he didn't have to work all the time. Like, he didn't have to,
Yeah.
I was just – I said it earlier. He was just always better to people than he had to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the best way I can sum up at least my experiences with Verghese.
Yeah, I don't have as close to stories as you guys have, but I was one of those strangers that would walk into Pisons, right, just randomly, and I'd met him in person a couple of times. I always thought it was really cool when I would see him either at Scott games covering something that he would point at me and he would say, "You're one of Damon's guys," and I always thought that might be a bad thing, but the very first time I was ever at Pisons and I met him was after I was at KRVN and I had drove up from Lexington to cover a Lexington Scott boys basketball game that was at Scott. And the Scott basketball coach actually told me to go to Pisons after because I had called him for pregame and he was like, "No, this is what we always do. Like, it's a long trip for you, whatever, we'll get you pizza."
Mm-hmm.
And Verghese immediately knew that I was not one of the Scott guys and was just like, "What's this guy doing here?" So he sat down next to me and he said, are you going back tonight? And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Well, I'm not going to let you drink on the way." So he gave me a beer there. The other time that I met him was actually when my now fiance and I first moved to Omaha in July last year. And we, of course, knew about Pisons. I had it before from that first experience. And we went out and we were just going to do a regular date night, have a good time. It was kind of a slower night on like a Thursday or Friday night. And our server, whatever, just, kind of forgot about us or whatever the case was. Verghese walked over to us. We didn't even notice that, we were just hanging out, doing our thing. We didn't even notice that like an order hadn't gotten put in. We hadn't gotten food or whatever. And he just comes over and he goes, "You guys gotten your food yet? What'd you order?" We tell him and he just goes, "Don't worry about it. Like, I got you covered. Sorry it was so long." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, not a problem. Whatever." He came back, handed it, and he goes, "You will tip." And again, just that cool. I think the one thing being like the producer for the show and hearing what Verghese had to do, and I think my experience is very similar to what a lot of people in the chat, what a lot of other people, you may not know how to feel, right? Because it's a loss of our community, right? Like, it's a loss of high school football. It's a loss of Nebraska football. It's a loss of the Omaha community. I didn't know he was a 308 guy. I didn't know he was a Grand Island guy. I found out from a friend in Grand Island that he was going to go back for like the 100th anniversary of something like middle school game or something like that. Yeah, so all cool stuff. But Verghese was always Verghese, and he was always authentic. And that's what I learned from listening to the show here, from other shows that he had done, that was the thing that I thought was always the coolest part about him when like thinking about what do I have to say about him in this moment. And the one thing that, like, again, I didn't know him that well. You guys had great personal memories with him. If you're going to take anything from what Matt Vrzal's life was, just be authentic and be yourself, because that's who Verghese was. He was never anything. He never proclaimed himself to be an expert on the offensive line or an expert of Nebraska football, but everyone wanted to hear what he had to say because he was just going to tell you how it was. And when people would talk to him about high school football and when he would do broadcasts, it wasn't like other broadcasters. It wasn't like other people that would go up and do games in the booth. And Mike, I'm sure you agree that he probably didn't coach like other coaches would coach because he was he just did it way.
He every year, again, I back through text, just memory stuff, and did that last night. And since COVID year, he called high school state championship games, and he wanted to be so prepared. I'm telling you, like weeks out, he'd text me, "Hey, do you have this coach's number? I think or who do you think's going to be in the 8-man, finals? And I want to just start watching them, and I want to start learning, what they do and get their huddle tape if I can." And then he'd be like, "Do you have this coach's number, this coach's number, this coach's number? Because I want to go." What he did was he went to their practice to watch them practice before he called their game. And I mean, like, it didn't matter where in the state he went to watch their practice. So he knew and was educated enough to know what they ran and what they like to do and met the coaches and did all of that. I mean, that's a different level of like professionalism, if you will, or homework. And one more thing with him is he texts me. I guess I sent this guys to you. So Verghese and I obviously Damon is the connection there, and for me, and we have followed each other or been back to back on sports talk radio in this state for years, probably a decade. And he always said, I guess we through the years we talked about it, we always said we'll get to the guts of it, of the conversation. But we also want to make it fun and entertaining for the listeners and viewers and people that do it. So there is there was very much so intentionality to, his appearances and things that he did. Yes, it was just naturally him with the jokes and the quips and things like that. And I learned from him on that. And that's why sometimes I get a little off the rails on this show. And it's because it's entertainment and we want people to be entertained and we want it to be fun. And I can't tell you the number of times that I'm at a game or the grocery store or whatever, and they said, man, that hour with you and Verz is so much fun. And it's fun. Like we should be having fun doing this, and obviously not being on over the air anymore. We can have a little more fun because we like to say words that aren't appropriate for FCC or whatever that is. So, but it's, it's entertainment and it's entertaining, and that's what it is. And for those high school people, I had a crazy idea one time, and Austin, you know what it is because you're the producer of this show now. It was I had an idea about doing a post game show, like wrapping up high school football on a Friday night every Friday, and this was when I worked for the World Herald, and I took it. I brought the idea to my bosses at the World Herald, and they shot it down real hard. And then I was like, well, where else can we do this? How else can we do this? Let's do this. The first ever Nebraska Preps postgame show was at Pisons on a Friday night after football. And it was me and Damon in his shop. And there was a lot of people, like, because I think Scud had a home game that night, but there was a ton of people there. And I remember Pat was there, and I think Sasha maybe even was there too. But we set up this thing. We just, okay, let's turn this into something. The first ever one, and this is 5 years ago, 6 years, I don't even know when, but it was a long time ago, was at Matt's because I just was like, I want to do this. I think it's cool. I think it's a great idea. And it just went, like, the lights were out. We were in the little closet thing, like before you go to the bathroom, in his area. And it was Damon and I, and we were sitting there, and like, we didn't know anything. We didn't know what we were doing. We didn't know how to do it. We didn't know anything about it. And now it's turned into like a decently popular, I would say, podcast for us anyway. I only did it the one time because I got told I couldn't do it anymore when I worked other place. After they saw that I did it that one time, they told me I can't do it anymore. So, but yeah, it's just things like that, like crazy ideas. And then even after I left the World Herald, I went back, on my own, and Verz like didn't spend money on advertising at all. But that's how I was feeding my family at the time. And I had another, random idea, and I went to him with it, and I said, hey, like, it's going to be this much. Like, what do you think? Like, what do you think about this idea? And he's like, well, I'll do it this way and whatever. And he goes, I got you. I'm in for it. Like, I'll do it. I said, okay. And like, it wasn't a lot of money, but it was, I think it was like $1,000 for like something. And, he's like, didn't blink at it because he knew that like, that's how I was supporting my family, and he just wanted to help. So Yeah. Good dude, man.
Well, as he would say to you, just for a couple minutes here, let's get to the guts. And, high school football. Some good games this weekend. I think the one I'm going to end up going out to is Central and West Side.
Yeah.
And that one should be really interesting. Is that kind of the one you've got the closest eyes on this week? And where are you going to be at this week?
Yeah, in Class A, that's probably the closest one as far as rated teams and matchup that you could see maybe being close, if you will. So it'll be interesting because Jerron Cannon rushed for 310 yards against Central, and Tay Jenkins is a pretty good back too, and their line's pretty good. So that one is a little.
You're running back. You love big game chain coming. Just saying.
Yeah. That one's a little. That's going to be the key. Can they stop the run, right? And can Westside get to BJ Newsome enough to slow them down and do all that? So that's the biggest one in A, and it's not too bad. But in Class A football this year, it's hard to find good matchups every week. So that's just kind of where we're at, and it's part of the deal, and it's fine. And if people would stop complaining about it, that'd be awesome too.
I agree. Mike, I'm with you.
How does La Vista Prep look to you?
Yeah, that one looks all right. Like, I think, Prep winning 14-7, Prep's unbeaten, and Papillion La Vista's 3-1 and lost just their first game to Papio South. So I think that one has a chance to be pretty all right too. Like, it could be competitive. It's kind of one of those, can Papio or Monarchs, can they jump up into that like next tier level? And make that playoff push coming. I guess we're like over halfway through the season almost there. So can they make that push to the end here is a key. And Preps keeps winning, man. Like, they just keep winning. And Prep has Central next week, I think, and then Westside, I think, the week after or 2 weeks after. So if they're unbeaten and Westside's unbeaten, maybe brings back that rivalry a little bit, because it's been really one-sided recently. So
been a few years, yeah.
So maybe that's it, but there's not a lot, start of district play this week. There's not a lot of great options. I personally will be in Deschler, really close to Vrzal's 308, not quite 308, but it's
almost
close.
Yeah.
So I'll be Lawrence Nelson at Deschler, and I'm actually excited to see Wyatt Frey play. The quarterback, safety, linebacker from Lawrence Nelson. He got a Northwestern offer, 2027 kid, got a Northwestern offer over the summer, visited Nebraska last weekend, visiting Iowa coming up. So big, strong kid that I kind of want to see there. And Deschler's unbeaten too. So it's a 8-man 2 game it's only about 220 away from Omaha, I think. So
that's nothing.
Only
that's a short little drive.
Just go York and straight down, basically to Kansas.
York and straight down. That is some directional, if I've ever heard it. I love that.
Yeah, west to York, straight south.
Mike, where are you on? Are you feeling confident that you can start to sift out where Class B is yet, or do you still need a couple more games to figure it out?
No, because week 8 and 9 is like the bigger games, right? Like, if all these teams continue to win and like they should, you have, like your Scott Bennington, Bennington Elkhorn North is week 9. Scott Bennington is week 8. Bennington Elkhorn North is week 9. That's just nuts. That district is crazy that they're all 3 in there.
You have Gretna Bennington.
Yeah, Gretna Bennington is a game that could be like 50 something to 42. It could be
Big 12 numbers.
It could be. It's very much so a Big 12 game. Like, it could be. So you have those type of games that are just still out there hanging around in B. Norris Waverly is week 8 if they both can get there. Norris has Pius tonight. Pius won last week, and Norris obviously is pretty good. So like Norris Waverly's week 8 too. Like there's some big games in B coming up. So it's hard to sift through right now. You just kind of wait and see towards the end, and then you don't know, like, if playoffs come, there'll probably be just rematches a little bit across the board there. So so B and C2 are the ones where it's like any one of these 5-ish teams, maybe more, could win the thing. Like, we just don't. There isn't a prohibitive favorite at this point, where you're just like, oh yeah, they're easily the favorite. That isn't where we're at right now. In those two of the 7 classes, that's kind of where it's at.
Mike, do you have a favorite surprise team so far? I've got a few that I can name, like, from different classes, but is there one that's definitely, I guess, surprised you the most from any of the classes?
Yeah, I would say West Point Beamer in C2.
Yep.
They play Hardington Cedar Catholic tonight, so that one could be West Point Beamer is the I think a pretty good surprise. No one expected them to be where they are right now.
Yeah. What'd you think of Mount Michael Lakeview last week? Is Mount Michael for real? I mean, can they keep up?
Gosh, their schedule is so tough in this 3-week stretch here. Fort Calhoun's another one in C1 that is they've moved, slowly up the last couple years, and now they're working on some big games here coming up. But Mount Michael is tough as nails. Like, they are so physical and tough. They were not severely, but they were definitely undersized against Lakeview last week and still hung in there. It's 21-7 in the first half at halftime and no score in the second half. So they didn't wear down and, all those things. They are so physically tough. They're just tough kids. And now Mount Michael, so they played Lakeview last week. They played Fort Calhoun this week. And then next week they play Wahoo. Like, they might, if they survive that healthy, like, good on them. The one thing that I thought was cool about Mount Michael was their entire coaching staff, no headsets. You're coaching 11-man C1 football, no headset, no one up in the box, no nothing. That's very rare. So seeing that was kind of like, oh man, wow, like, that's cool. And also for those Husker fans out there, Chad Kelsey coaching the line. He's very much so slimmer than when he played at Auburn High School when I was in middle school at Auburn. But
why got to carbon date people, Mike?
What'd you say?
Why you got to go carbon date people?
I just, he actually played with my brother basketball. He was on the same basketball team as my brother. So, but Chad, he's coaching him up like he was, yeah. So Chad, NFL guy, right? Played in the NFL, him and his brother Chris. That's a neat kind of story too. So Chad has a son, Mount Michael Tennyson, and Chris Kelsey is helping coach and coaching D-line at Gretna East because he has a son playing at Gretna East. So you have these 2 former Huskers, 2 guys that played in the NFL and were drafted, coaching high school football teams where their sons are on the team and in their position groups and stuff. So it's that's a kind of a neat little story there.
Mike, we appreciate so much the time today and your willingness to come on with us still. I know it's a really hard day for you and everybody who loved Verse. So thank you. Hope you get to take a little break and enjoy some high school football tonight. And as we remember our friend, just thank you.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna mow my yard today because Vrzal thought that I like to send yard pictures to people, and Vrzal, the last one I sent to him, he said, "Is that spray paint?" So yeah. All right, thanks guys.
That's Mike Sautter from Hurrdat Sports and NebPreps. Make sure you follow along all his high school coverage on all of our platforms, as well as his own personal social media as well, at Mike Sautter. We're going to take a quick break here. We will wrap up the show and get you going on to your weekend coming up next year on Hurrdat Sports Live.
Huss has to make sure I know what the hell's going on, not the other way. It's been great having him back. And as you guys know, in the summertime, I kind of hand the keys to my assistant coaches anyway. And, he had done it before when he was my assistant. And obviously as a head coach, he's done it, over and over again. So, he was able to install some things that are a little bit different to our offense to go with what we've done in the past and to take advantage of the strengths of this team. So we're really, Mike Nesbitt has joined us. Mitch is now in a full-time role. So couldn't be more pleased with our coaching staff. I think there's an excitement. I think guys are hungry to learn, and it's a puzzle. As a coach, you're trying to put together all these pieces, and this group could be as challenging as any, just because we have a lot of guys that are probably ready to play, and not everybody is going to play. So how you manage that, and how we take advantage of this depth that we've had. Because let's be honest, the last few years that hasn't necessarily been the case. The bench has been pretty short, but that will not be the case this year.
Lease the 2025 Nissan Sentra starting at just $275 a month with 0 down. Style, efficiency, and savings made simple at Edwards Nissan. Or sign and drive the 2026 Nissan Rogue Rock Creek. Lease starting at $409 a month. Built for every adventure, backed by Edwards' trusted service and transparent deals. September savings mean Nissan deals at Edwards Nissan.
Centris Federal Credit Union, we understand that the journey of building your own business typically starts with modest beginnings. With a little help from our team of experts and small business loan offerings, you can take your vision and transform it into a more concrete reality. Centris Federal Credit Union. We are where you are.
You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Live.
Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Live, presented by Centris Federal Credit Union. That's Austin. I'm Ravi. Reminding you, our friends over at Centris have you covered. They've got your finances right at your fingertips with their mobile banking app. We know that you don't operate on bank hours with your finances, and Centris helps you out there. You can mobile check deposit, 24/7 card controls. Your finances are always in your hands no matter where you are. Check them out, centrisfcu.org, and open an account today, federally insured by NCUA.
Before we close out the show, I just wanted to say a big thank you to, I know it's been mentioned in the chat as well, from Sautter, from you. I know DB will have his time when he's ready. Also, thank you to Shane. Got here early this morning. Shane was here early as well, earlier than I was, and just sharing a little bit back and forth. I know that this is something that doesn't get to happen very often, but you don't usually get to share you don't get to tell people their flowers when they're still around, usually, right? It usually happens far too late. And Verz, from what I can tell from everyone that has shared stories, whether it's through comments, online, social media, from what we've heard this morning and beyond, that Verz was he was virtuous in that sense, that it felt like no matter where he was or what he was doing, he was always able to share those stories and share those flowers. And I'm really glad that everyone is able to share, and now the Verz community, and be able to know kind of what's going on in that sense, and be able to get a sense of who he was as a person, who he was as all that stuff. So I appreciate the ability of everyone to be vulnerable, whether it's you, Ravi, Sautter, Shane, Damon when he returns, and everyone moving forward, that it's important that we share these. And it's important also as men in 2025 that we can do this. So it wouldn't have been possible without Verz, and as tough as that is, I do appreciate all of you guys being able to do that. So it gives people like me, who only knew him from certain senses and certain availabilities, or from different mediums, different forms, a better sense of who he was. And the last thing that I'll say before I hand it over to you is one of my favorite memories is actually going to the Shrine Bowl, like regularly, like throughout the years. I'll be honest, I don't even know why I'm getting so emotional. I think it's just because of like everything else that you guys have shared. But riding down to Kansas City with Damon for that Arrowhead Stadium game and taking him down, I told Damon that day that I was like, one of the coolest stories I've ever heard you and Verz talk about on air was your Shrine Bowl experience, and how important that was for your guys' friendship and what you built, and how you became friends and Huskers and lifelong friends after that. Just the power of the ability of people to meet from different walks of life, to be able to connect over something as dumb as a game of football, right? I think Verz is a perfect just mesh of all of that. And just being able to hear that story from Damon before any of this ever happened, and being able to hear that from you guys has just been, it's been very awe-inspiring. So thank you for doing that, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, Austin. As we were trying to figure out what and how to do for the show today, I felt very strongly that it didn't feel right to have anybody else in Matt Vrzal's time slot this week. That includes myself or Austin. As we kind of wrap up the show, as we remember Verz, as we mourn and grieve and lament the loss of a friend. You know, you mentioned it's hard for people, especially men, to receive their flowers while they're still alive. That's something DB talks about all the time. I mentioned it in the first hour that he's gone through far too many of these, especially recently. So he knows that in a very, very real and unfortunately practical sense in his own life. I will say, I said it before, tell the people you love that you love them. It doesn't matter that it's weird. Make it weird. Tell them why you love them. Tell them why you care about them. Tell them what you appreciate about them. It is 100% worth it all the time. No matter how they react in the moment, I guarantee you that it means something to them. Even somebody like myself, who is definitely on the more sensitive side than a guy like Verz was.
Right.
They'll appreciate it too, even if they make fun of you a little bit in the moment. It's worth it. Tell people you love them. Make it weird. As we wrap the show up today, we wanted to leave you with one last little gift from Verz. A little compilation that Shane and Rico put together of some of our favorite Verz moments over the years. So for one last time, here's Matt Vrzal.
Now let's find out what Matt Vrzal is better at: telling stories or making pizza.
Matt, Matt.
Matt's an exceptional young man. Matt Vrzal.
Happy birthday, Matt.
You know, Matt, he's a tremendous athlete.
Matt Vrzal.
Come on, Matt, I'm with you.
You know, like Matt Vrzal, you're one of the sexiest people in the world, but you're not one of the most beautiful. How does that happen?
Here is Matt Vrzal.
All right, Matt, thank you very much.
What's up, fuckers?
Wow.
But that's a great motivator. If you don't want to get smoked again, guess what you're going to do next time? You're going to do a better job of assessing that blitz and hit the hot route.
If you like all your fingers pointing in the same direction.
Oh,
yes. Yeah. You don't want to look like Ray Nitschke when you point at the camera. You're going to throw that thing next time. You don't want Chuck Bednarik hand. You're going to let that baby rip.
Wow. All right,
if you want to point north, if you want to point north and your fingers facing west, that's a you problem. One of the funnest things I've ever done in football was we were in Malcolm, and love Malcolm. I will ride or die for the clip joint all my whole life. First one's free because coaches will lie to you.
Yeah,
Damon, you can agree with me on that.
Yeah, 100%.
Oh yeah, man, we're gonna bring you in. You're gonna be getting starting playing time right away, baby. You and everybody else we just told that to. Come on in.
Yeah.
I'm never gonna leave here. Me and you are gonna be here for 5 years together.
Yeah.
Here's your other thing, though. You gotta hope that shit show on the west side of Lincoln ain't bad with dumbasses driving.
Oh, the part that's like 65 for a little bit and it sinks up on you?
Semis. It is just a breeding ground for left laners. The people that don't know, get your slow ass in the right lane. Here's the thing of it, though. There ain't but one way to find that out.
Got to do it.
I got to put that sumbitch in the game.
Yeah.
And, lean and mean Matt Rule trying to, dude, bro, save some for the rest of us. I mean, God, you're just out there jacked and yoked. Get off the testosterone replacement, bro. What are we doing here? The 1995 team is one of the few relevant things left about your program. So, hey, maybe instead of saying from 5 to 7, we will tolerate you. Okay? Maybe you let us leave when we want to leave.
Wow.
How about that? How about you try that on? Okay? Like 5 to 7. You could spare 2 hours for us. Great. I know you got to prep. I know you got to get ready for a big game day next day. Guess what? Your cleaning crews get paid American money. So you will tell them when they work. And if they don't like it, and you get rid of them, you get another cleaning company. I had a guy who was over in District 66. They would take that job.
Hey, time for team coaching, baby. Let's go.
Your wife, one of the more well-mannered people around, says please.
It's all relative.
And you just assume. Like your sons both say please.
After this segment you had, I couldn't muster it. I'm sorry.
Your beautiful mother, who you don't bring into Paisans, which is rude.
Yeah.
She says please.
Hey, this is what's up. And if you want to change it, here's how you can change it. And so when you can go through those steps and you can do those things, then I think it helps a lot. And if you're a competitor, you take that information and you just harness and you get to work and you get yourself back in the game. And there's more of a sense of pride once you are back there. Like, they told me I sucked at this, but I fixed that. And now I'm back in the game. So that's the psychological side of it that I like.
Thank you, fuckers, for having me on.